Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. It felt as if the Uchiha might finally be able to breathe, free from the constant persecution. However, as Shizue relaxed, an intense pain shot through his eyes, causing him to clutch them. When he opened them again, blood tears were streaming down his face, and his vision was blurry. He staggered a few steps and almost collapsed. Once he steadied himself, Shizue sighed inwardly. He knew that using Suzuno and Kodoa Matsukami took a heavy toll on the eyes, but he hadn't expected the cost of using Kodoa Matsukami to be so devastating. His right eye, from which he had cast the Genjutsu, was nearly blinded. It would be impossible to use it again in the short term. Byakuya noticed Shizue's distressed expression and furrowed his brows. Shizue, it looks like using Kodoa Matsukami took a greater toll than I expected. How long until your eyes recover? Shizue nodded, grimacing slightly. Byakuya-sama, it will take at least 5 years for my eyesight to fully recover. 5 years. Byakuya nodded, then said, a 5-year cool-down is acceptable. We won't need Kodoa Matsukami again for a while. Just focus on recuperating. Hearing this, Shizue felt a sense of warmth in his heart. He realized that, unlike Hiruzen Sarutobi or Denzo, Byakuya wasn't focused on power for power's sake. This was the attitude of a true top-tier shinobi. Regaining his composure, Shizue approached Denzo's body and removed his Sharingan, turning to Byakuya and asking, Byakuya-sama, what is our next move? Eliminating Denzo, a significant enemy, was a good thing, but Shizue didn't forget his ultimate goal, saving his clan from the threat of extinction. Eliminating Denzo was merely a temporary delay in this process. Byakuya pondered for a long time before turning to Shizue with a question. Shizue, what do you think we should do next? Denzo is a high-ranking figure in Hidden Leaf Village. If he goes missing, Hiruzen Sarutobi won't just ignore it. But if we let Denzo go, he'll come after the Uchiha even harder. Shizue fell into deep thought. Byakuya was right. In order to take down Denzo, they had already killed more than a dozen root ninjas, causing quite a disturbance. If the higher-ups, especially Hiruzen Sarutobi, found out, they would likely become even more suspicious of the Uchiha clan. After a brief pause, Shizue spoke up. Byakuya-sama, what if we take Denzo's corpse and the evidence to the Hokage's office? With Denzo dead, I don't think Hiruzen Sarutobi would tear his relationship with the Uchiha clan over a dead man. Byakuya gave Shizue a thoughtful glance. Shizue's train of thought was becoming more refined. Hiruzen was an indecisive leader, much like Fugaku Uchiha. Just like how Hiruzen had once forgiven Denzo for orchestrating the elimination of the Uchiha clan through Itachi, Shizue's plan might actually work. If Shizue presented Denzo's death and evidence to the Hokage, Hiruzen might be willing to compromise. After all, Hiruzen's primary goal was stability. It wouldn't be worth it to risk offending the Uchiha clan over a man like Denzo. Giving them a way out might even help mend their relationship. However, while this situation might benefit both Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha, it wouldn't maximize Byakuya's own interests. Hidden Leaf Village was the enemy of the Akatsuki, and it was a significant obstacle to the success of the Moon's Eye plan. If the relationship between Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha improved, it would become much harder to recruit members for the Akatsuki. Byakuya shook his head. Shizue, your plan is good, but the risks are too great, and it places too much reliance on Hidden Leaf Village. You should know that Hidden Leaf Village will never truly accept the Uchiha. Hearing this, Shizue fell silent, looking at Byakuya with hopeful eyes. Byakuya walked over to Denzo's body and gestured toward Shizue. I've thought of a better plan, but it requires you to make a sacrifice. Shizue swallowed nervously. He had no idea what Byakuya's next move would be. After a brief pause, Byakuya revealed his plan. Denzo is a high-ranking figure in Hidden Leaf Village, the leader of Root. We can use his position to slowly move the Uchiha clan. If we act in the name of Root, even if other ninjas discover it, they won't suspect the Uchiha. We can secretly relocate the clan under the guise of root. Shishui's eyes suddenly lit up. He had realized what Byakuya was getting at. Excitedly, he said, Byakuya-sama, your idea is brilliant. As long as I control Denzo, and have the clan secretly join root for our purposes, we can relocate the Uchiha in secret. The clan's crisis will be averted. Byakuya nodded approvingly. You're starting to see the bigger picture. However, Kodoa Matsukami can be seen through with a Byakugan. To avoid being discovered by Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, you'll need to impersonate Denzo. Impersonate Denzo. Shishui was momentarily stunned. I've never had experience in a high-ranking role before. Byakuya gave him a serious look. Experience is something you gain by learning. No one is born with the ability to lead. After going through the trials of root, you'll truly be in a position to serve me. Chapter 280, The Death of Shishui. Only by adapting to the role of the leader of the root organization could Shishui truly become useful to Byakuya-sama. Upon hearing this, Shishui was filled with shock and awe toward Byakuya. Byakuya's ambition was so grand, even someone with his own strength, at the level of a Kage, could only barely be considered a pawn in Byakuya's grand scheme. Could Byakuya's target be the entire ninja world? This ambition far surpassed even that of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, who had pacified the world for decades. Although Hashirama Senju was the most powerful ninja in the world, after unifying the Land of Fire, he lost the drive for external expansion and focused entirely on the construction of the village. Shishui was unsure how to evaluate Hashirama, but it was clear that Hashirama's vision wasn't as grand as Byakuya's. At least Byakuya had a way to save the Uchiha clan, while Hashirama's Hidden Leaf Village had driven many great clans from the ninja world to extinction, clans like the Senju, the Uzumaki, and nearly the Uchiha as well. Now, with the death of Denzo and the acquisition of leadership of the root, Shishui's goals were narrowed down to two things: leading his clan to gradually leave Hidden Leaf Village and pledging his loyalty to Byakuya, binding the Uchiha clan to Byakuya's cause. With a powerful being like Byakuya in the world, the Uchiha clan could at least enjoy decades of peace. Shishui snapped back from his wandering thoughts and looked back at Byakuya, who was examining Denzo's body. Byakuya was muttering to himself, transplanting the Sharingan could indeed suppress the Hashirama cells, but Denzo received too few of them. Hearing this, Shishui blinked in confusion and asked, Byakuya-sama, what did you just say? That transplanting the Sharingan could suppress Hashirama's cells? Byakuya nodded, then said, yes, transplanting the Sharingan can suppress the Hashirama cells, allowing the user to access some wood-style abilities. Additionally, the Yang Chakra in Hashirama cells can help restore the Sharingan's vision. These are directions our organization scientists have been studying. After a pause, Byakuya seemed to remember something, adding, speaking of Hashirama cells, Shishui, you might also want to try transplanting them. With your Uchiha bloodline, you'll be better able to handle the side effects than Denzo was. It's a little reward for joining the organization. With that, Byakuya patted Shishui on the shoulder and continued, alright, the aftermath here is for you to handle. Once you assume Denzo's identity, you need to forget about Shishui and what happened tonight. Don't tell anyone. I trust you, but that doesn't mean I trust all Uchiha. There's likely a mole from Hidden Leaf Village within your clan. If you leak any information and ruin my plan, the Uchiha won't have any other backing left. With that, Byakuya used his Mayfly technique and disappeared from the scene. At the same time, Shishui heard the system's prompt. System prompt, Shishui Uchiha has joined the Akatsuki organization. You have obtained a pair of 3 Tomoe Sharingan, 3 Tomoe Sharingan, the third stage of the Sharingan, possessing abilities like dynamic vision and a power to copy ninjutsu. A bloodline limit exclusive to the Uchiha clan. System upgrade, you now have 2 pairs of 3 Tomoe Sharingan. You have fulfilled the conditions for upgrading your Sharingan. The 3 Tomoe Sharingan has evolved into a Mangekyo Sharingan, blank, Mangekyo Sharingan, blank, a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan with no recorded abilities. Although it lacks any special techniques, it greatly enhances the power of ninjutsu. After hearing the system's prompt, Byakuya was momentarily stunned. 2 pairs of 3 Tomoe Sharingan evolving into Mangekyo Sharingan was certainly a pleasant surprise, but what was this about a Mangekyo Sharingan with no techniques? What was going on? After all, while the Mangekyo Sharingan was famous for granting the user powerful abilities, like Tsukaimi, Amaterasu, or even Kami, its real value lay in the abilities it granted. A Mangekyo without techniques seemed quite unusual. However, Byakuya was somewhat familiar with this blank Mangekyo Sharingan. He recalled that only 2 individuals had possessed Mangekyo Sharingan without any inherent abilities, Madara Uchiha and his younger brother, Izuna Uchiha. And, he actually does possess, but it was never named. I think it was time reversal of sort, or was it summoning a freaking asteroid? It was possible that both of them had obtained such Mangekyo Sharingan, which only served to enhance their base power, without granting them any specific abilities. For Byakuya, a blank Mangekyo was still a great asset. With such an enhancement to his base stats, even his normal attacks could potentially overwhelm Susanoo, making it time for the ninjas of the world to experience the true power of a Otsutsuki individual. After claiming the reward, Byakuya quietly returned to the crime scene to observe Shizue. Though he had told Shizue to handle everything, he was still somewhat concerned. Shizue was a good-hearted person, and playing the role of Denzo would be very difficult for him. Byakuya's ultimate goal wasn't just Shizue. He wanted to bring the entire Uchiha clan under his control. With so many Uchiha Jonin, perhaps he could even evolve his Mangekyo Sharingan to its eternal form. Plus, there were still a Weasel and Indra's reincarnation within the Uchiha clan. After Byakuya left, Shizue continued to stare at the spot where Byakuya had vanished, still processing the words Byakuya had just spoken. Byakuya had promised him that, in the future, he would help with his deteriorating vision. Byakuya had once again subtly threatened Shizue in terms of his family, placing the harsh reality before him. Despite Byakuya's mixture of benevolence and intimidation, Shizue didn't resent it. If Byakuya were to help the Uchiha clan without any strings attached, Shizue might suspect that Byakuya had ulterior motives. After everything that had happened, Shizue no longer believed in the will of fire. In fact, the Shizue Uchiha who had once believed in the will of fire had already died. What remained was a Shizue willing to do whatever it took for the sake of his clan, someone who had become a Denzo of the Uchiha. With this thought in mind, Shizue glanced at the unconscious Denzo on the ground and cast a Ganjutsu once again. The Ganjutsu was not to torture Denzo, but to acquire the information necessary for impersonating him. He needed to understand Denzo's mannerisms and behaviors if he was to become another Denzo. After half an hour of absorbing Denzo's memories, Shizue frowned. Denzo's memories were dark and twisted, which made Shizue question his ability to portray Denzo convincingly. Denzo was an extremely self-centered, selfish ninja. To become Hokage, he was even willing to sacrifice the Shimura clan. Moreover, the behavior of the third Hokage was disgusting. Denzo had committed so many acts that went against the will of fire, including attempting to assassinate the third Hokage, and yet the third Hokage still tolerated him. This left Shizue in disbelief. After digesting part of the memories, Shizue formed hand seals and transformed into Denzo's appearance. With the memories he had gathered, Shizue felt confident that he could now portray Denzo effectively. He was ready to assume the role of the leader of Root and embrace this new chapter of his life. Chapter 281, Shizue's professional training. A week later, news of Shizue's disappearance spread quickly, causing a huge uproar within the Uchiha clan, even prompting the holding of a clan meeting to discuss the matter. Though Shizue had never gotten along with the more radical Uchiha ninjas and leaned toward a more moderate stance, no one doubted his strength. Shizue possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, capable of unleashing the legendary Susanoo, and could fight tail beasts head-on. Such a powerful figure couldn't just disappear without a significant reason. There was clearly a conspiracy at play. During the search, the Uchiha soon discovered a suicide note in Shizue's home. The note stated that Shizue was filled with despair over the current state of the clan and the village. It seemed that Shizue didn't know whether to stand with the village or the clan. Under the overwhelming pressure, he had lost his will to live and chose to end his life. However, senior Uchiha ninjas like Fugaku didn't believe the contents of the note. They knew Shizue couldn't be that weak. The holder of the Mangekyo Sharingan would never die in such a trivial manner. Shizue must have been attacked by someone, and, most probably, his Mangekyo Sharingan taken before his death. Most believed the attackers were likely Hidden Leaf Village's high-ranking officials, led by the third Hokage, as no one else had the power to challenge Shizue Uchiha. However, some ninjas pointed suspicion toward Itachi Uchiha. Itachi was just as much of a genius as Shizue. Moreover, they had a close relationship. If Itachi had intended to steal Shizue's Mangekyo Sharingan and launch a surprise attack, his chances of success were certainly high. The key reason for suspicion was Itachi's refusal to hand over the list of Anbu members, which had already marked him as a traitor in the eyes of the clan. Itachi was now seen as a dog of the Hokage faction. But regardless, with the death of the Uchiha clan's strongest member, Shizue, their coup plans had effectively been halted. Without the Mangekyo Sharingan, the Uchiha would be no match for the Hokage faction. Still, the Uchiha upper ninjas believed that the clan would eventually find another opportunity for a coup, if not this time, then the next. Itachi, however, felt unjustly blamed by his clan and grew even more disdainful of their foolishness. He was not involved in Shizue's disappearance, and certainly hadn't forged the suicide note. According to intelligence from the ninja crows, Shizue had fought a major battle outside the village before disappearing. The attackers could have been either masked man or someone else, perhaps even Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups. Regardless, Shishui had used his life to delay the clan's coup and buy time to prevent the family and village from falling into conflict. However, it was clear that the next attempt at a coup would be even more intense. As time passed, news of Shishui's disappearance spread throughout the entire Hidden Leaf village. Many anti-Uchiha ninjas were relieved at the death of Shishui, the Mangekyo Sharingan holder, as it would greatly weaken the Uchiha's strength. Most, however, felt sorrow for his death. After all, Shishui was a Hidden Leaf village ninja, and the existence of his Mangekyo Sharingan had kept other enemy villages at bay. Now, with Shishui's death, Hidden Leaf village's ability to counter the tailed beasts was severely diminished, and the other villages might soon take action. The peace Hidden Leaf village had enjoyed for so many years might be at risk once again. Shishui, however, did not care about the rumors circulating in the village. He was far more interested in seeing how Hidden Leaf village would evaluate his death. During his week at the Root base, he had learned how to impersonate the leader of Root. This was aided by his ability to keenly observe things with the Mangekyo Sharingan, as well as Denzo's own assistance. If Denzo hadn't made Root into a one-man operation, Shishui's risk of exposure would have been much higher. Just as Shishui was reflecting on the past week's events, a knock came at his door, bearing news of a summons from the Hokage's office. The summons from the third Hokage caused a change in Shishui's expression. He wasn't sure if he could deceive the third Hokage and the two advisors, but as he had already decided to become Denzo, he would inevitably have to face these high-ranking Hidden Leaf village officials one day. After sneering in disdain at the third Hokage, Shishui set off for the Hokage building. Seeing Shishui's obvious disdain for the third Hokage, the Root ninjas did not show much reaction. Their leader, Denzo, had always spoken ill of the third Hokage, and no matter how outrageous Denzo's actions were, the third Hokage would always forgive him. Soon enough, Shishui found himself in the Hokage's office, where the third Hokage was glaring at him with a face full of displeasure. Shishui couldn't help but wonder, was the third Hokage doubting his identity, or was this just how the third Hokage treated Denzo? Before he could think much further, the third Hokage spoke up. Denzo, have you heard about Shishui's disappearance? Shishui feigned confusion, beginning to play his role as Denzo. Shishui's disappearance? When did that happen? I've been at the base for the past few days, not really paying attention to the Uchiha. The third Hokage snorted coldly and got straight to the point. You can't possibly claim you don't know. That afternoon when Shishui used his Mangekyo Sharingan, he disappeared for an entire afternoon. After that, he completely vanished. Clearly, it was you who did something to him. Driven by our greed for the Mangekyo Sharingan, you finally made a move against Shishui. Don't forget, Shishui was one of the few Uchihas who was loyal to the village. If Shishui had heard these words from the third Hokage before, he would have undoubtedly felt touched. The third Hokage had always been trying to ease tensions between the Uchiha and the village, even reprimanding the higher-ups to achieve this. But after taking Denzo's place as the head of Root, Shishui knew things weren't as simple as they appeared. The third Hokage harbored no real goodwill toward the Uchiha, and by tacitly approving of Denzo's actions, he had sent a clear signal with his secret divulging of Koto Umatsukami. The third Hokage was wary of the powers of Koto Umatsukami, but he didn't want to ruin his own prestigious image. Was such a ninja truly fit to remain in the position of Hokage? Shishui had serious doubts. After a long pause, Shishui began weaving a lie. Yes, I admit I took action against Shishui, but everything I did was for the village. Shishui's Koto Umatsukami was a serious threat to us, and I had no choice but to take him out. Unfortunately, Shishui was stronger than I expected, and in the end, I failed to capture him, and he managed to escape. You really did take action against Shishui? The third Hokage said with a fluctuating expression, his voice laced with suspicion. But Koto Umatsukami must still be with you, right? Shishui was not the type to just commit suicide. Shishui, now showing a somewhat displeased expression, responded, do you really think I have the strength to deal with Shishui? If I had truly captured him, I would have already sent someone to take action against the Uchiha. Chapter 282, I am right in front of you. Upon hearing Denzo speak those words, the third Hokage's face turned red with anger. Who told you to act against the Uchiha? He said, his voice filled with dissatisfaction. Do you realize that your actions could easily incite a civil war in the village? If Shishui really is dead, then it's a tragedy, but what if he isn't? If he survived and became a rogue ninja with the Mangekyo Sharingan, he could become yet another formidable enemy of Hidden Leaf Village, perhaps even more troublesome than Orochimaru. It seemed that the third Hokage understood the implications of what was happening, so Denzo spoke again, don't worry. Shishui is gravely wounded. He's probably already dead, lying somewhere in the Death Forest. Once Shizue is dealt with, we can move forward with our actions against the Uchiha. As for Lord Tobirama, the third Hokage's expression turned sour as he glared at Denzo. Stop mentioning Tobirama-sama to me. If Tobirama-sama were still alive, he would have dealt with the Uchiha in his own way. He would never resort to violence against the Uchiha, who were once his comrades. After a moment of silence, the third Hokage glanced out the window and muttered softly, I'll keep quiet about your actions against Shizue, but if the Uchiha do start a coup, I'm leaving the situation to you. Despite his disapproval of Denzo's unauthorized actions, the third Hokage didn't punish him. While Denzo's interference with Shizue may have been unwarranted, it did solve the problem Shizue posed. The power of the Mangekyo Sharingan had made the Hokage cautious and anxious these past few days, fearing that Shizue would use his abilities to manipulate his mind. However, the news of Denzo attacking Shizue must never leak out. If it did, the Hokage faction would find themselves in a vulnerable position. At present, the Hokage still needed Denzo, his trusted right hand, to do the dirty work for him. The truth was, there were few ninjas left who would willingly take on the darkness for the village. I know how to handle this. You don't need to teach me, the third Hokage snapped. Hearing this, Denzo's expression changed slightly. Imitating Denzo's tone, Shizue coldly scoffed before storming out of the Hokage's office. Walking through the dark alley, Shizue's face was a mixture of emotions. His meeting with the third Hokage had gone smoothly, and he hadn't exposed himself. This undoubtedly proved his talent in using transformation jutsu, enough to deceive even a ninja master like the third Hokage. But the third Hokage's words about Denzo left a bitter taste in his mouth. The third Hokage was well aware of Denzo's nature but had always turned a blind eye to his actions, even when they had a direct impact on the village. In the past, when Denzo suppressed the Uchiha, the third Hokage had played the role of the good guy, stepping in to diffuse tensions and speak out for the Uchiha, giving hope to the pacifist faction while allowing the more aggressive faction to tear itself apart. It's clear now that the third Hokage is no longer just a wise leader of the village. His true nature was far more calculating than Shizue had ever imagined. But all of that was in the past. Now that he had taken Denzo's place as the leader of Root, he could use his new position to weaken the Hokage faction. In fact, one day, he might even run for Hokage himself. A slight smile curled at the corner of Shizue's lips as he thought about this. A few minutes later, Shizue returned to the Root base. As he was about to interrogate Denzo using Ganjutsu, Shizue heard a knock at the door of the secret room. Locking Denzo back up, Shizue walked to his office. He called out, "Come in," and was greeted by a familiar masked figure. This figure was none other than his close friend, Itachi Uchiha. Just as Shizue was about to reveal his true identity to Itachi, and the two would work together to use Denzo's position to save the Uchiha clan, he remembered Byakuya's warning. Apart from Byakuya, he couldn't reveal his identity to anyone else, including Itachi. Calming his emotions, Shizue recalled how Denzo had interacted with Itachi in the past. He asked, "Itachi, did you come with some new information?" Itachi observed Shizue closely. He felt something was different about the Denzo in front of him. This Denzo seemed somewhat proud, as if something good had just happened. At that moment, Itachi felt a sense of unease in his heart. His expression turned grim as he continued to observe Denzo. These past few days, Itachi had been investigating Shizue's death. He didn't believe that Shizue would choose to commit suicide out of despair. He was sure that Shizue had been attacked by another ninja, which explained his disappearance. Among all the suspects, Denzo was the most likely. If he weren't worried about the village, Itachi would have taken action against Denzo right away and killed this scheming old man on the spot. Taking a deep breath, Itachi turned to Denzo and asked, "Denzo-sama, what do you think about Shizue's disappearance?" Denzo's expression was somewhat awkward, as he didn't have much of an opinion on Shizue's disappearance. However, he also wanted to see where he stood in Itachi's eyes, so he replied, "Shizue is a naive ninja, even with the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan. But every Uchiha who awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan tends to become twisted in personality. Who knows, one day, he might turn against the village. Do you have any idea where he went? Where did he disappear to?" Upon hearing this, Itachi fell silent for a moment. Then, as if he had made a decision, he said, "Denzo-sama, I don't know Shizue's whereabouts. However, his disappearance has caused the more radical factions within the clan to quiet down. They probably won't be planning a coup anymore. That's not certain. The Uchiha will never give up on becoming Hokage. You must continue to monitor the Uchiha clan and send me intelligence," Denzo replied. Itachi remained silent for a while before saying, "Denzo-sama, the Uchiha." Denzo interrupted Itachi, walked up to him, and asked directly, "Itachi, are you standing with the village, Or are you with the Uchiha? Do you really think your clan will give up on becoming Hokage? Itachi was stunned by the question and gave a vague reply. I will do my best to prevent a conflict between the clan and the village. I won't let the village fall into civil war. Upon hearing Itachi's response, Denzo furrowed his brows. Itachi's avoidance of the real issue was very clever, but Denzo wanted to know Itachi's true thoughts. He was somewhat afraid that Itachi might abandon the village and side with the Uchiha. From Itachi's attitude toward his clan, it seemed very likely that he was leaning toward supporting the village. If Denzo were to expose his true identity now, Itachi might even take action against him. The reason was simple, his actions had already been a betrayal to the village. With this thought, Denzo sighed softly. He would continue to probe Itachi and test his true intentions. If Itachi really did side with the village, the former best friend might turn into an enemy. Chapter 283, Naruto who wants recognition. While Shisui was immersed in playing the role of Denzo, Byakuya had already transformed into an ordinary tourist, strolling around the streets of Hidden Leaf Village. Compared to 7 or 8 years ago, the changes in the streets of Hidden Leaf Village were substantial. The narrow streets, after the Night of the Nine Tails, had been rebuilt into bright, wide boulevards. The only thing that seemed unchanged was the Ikiraku ramen shop in the corner. No matter what kind of crisis Hidden Leaf Village faced, Ikiraku ramen always seemed to appear on the streets. After ordering a bowl of ramen at Ikiraku, Byakuya ate the sour bamboo shoots and Narutomaki on the ramen while waiting for the person he was meeting. A few minutes later, Naruto rushed into the ramen shop, panting, and said to Tukioja-san, I'll have a supersized bowl of ramen. I'll pay you back later. I just got another help request, and I have to go help them right away. The money doesn't matter. Tuki, looking at the panting Naruto, asked with some concern, Naruto, who asked for your help this time? What's the reward? It seems they want me to find a lost stray cat. No reward. Tuki furrowed his brows and said, how can there be no reward? If everyone just asks you to help for free, won't you be working all day long? Naruto smiled nonchalantly and said, as long as they acknowledge me, that's enough. Tuki sighed softly, knowing that Naruto wouldn't listen to him, but he always found it hard to watch others take advantage of Naruto. Naruto was an orphan, and now so many people were using him. After Tuki entered the kitchen, Naruto looked around before turning to Byakuya, puzzled. Who are you? I've never seen you around the village before. Byakuya smiled and replied, I'm just a passing traveler. It's normal that you haven't seen me. Oh. Naruto scratched his head and then said, do you need help with something? I love helping people. As long as you recognize me, I can help you with anything. Recognize you? Byakuya asked, somewhat confused. So if I recognize you, you'll do anything for me? Naruto nodded, grinning. Yep, as long as you recognize me, I can help you with anything, as long as I'm capable of doing it. Byakuya frowned. Just a word of recognition, and you won't lose anything? The other diners overheard their conversation and laughed, saying, Naruto is different from others. He's going to become Hokage someday. If he helps us now, we'll help him back in the future. When Naruto heard the word Hokage, his eyes lit up. Becoming Hokage had always been his dream since he was a child. As long as he could become Hokage, he would do anything, and to become Hokage, he needed the villagers' recognition. In the past, Naruto didn't know how to earn recognition, but now he had found the answer. As long as he helped the villagers for free, they would give him a thumbs up and recognize his actions. Soon, Tuki brought out a bowl of ramen and placed it in front of Naruto. Naruto didn't waste any time. He quickly finished the ramen and left Ikiraku, eager to help more people. Byakuya glanced at Naruto, who had left, with a strange expression. The Naruto in his memory was indeed kind-hearted, but he would never be so honest and humble in helping others. Moreover, although this Naruto appeared cheerful and sunny, he was only a hair's breadth away from being corrupted. The experiences of being exploited by others would give Naruto a sense of validation, but once people became accustomed to being helped by him, they might start taking advantage of him and even repay his kindness with hostility. Even if Naruto were the reincarnation of Ashura, he could still become a problem in the Tsukahime world. One could only say, as expected, the methods of Black Zetsu, who had cultivated both Madara Uchiha and Obito, were formidable. After slowly finishing his ramen, Byakuya walked to a residential house. He looked at the shadow on the ground and slowly said, Black Zetsu-senpai, is this the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki you've trained? He seems to be close to falling to the dark side. Black Zetsu-senpai, you've done even better than I imagined. Black Zetsu emerged from the ground. He was somewhat surprised by Byakuya's visit and didn't know why Byakuya had come at this moment. However, after hearing Byakuya mention Naruto, Black Zetsu smiled and said, these are just small matters. Your plan is much better. If I deliberately guide the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki toward darkness, he might be discovered by the Hokage. But your plan is different. First, let Naruto treat the villagers with sincerity. When the villagers can no longer reciprocate with sincerity, Naruto will explode with pinned-up emotions, becoming a ticking time bomb for Hidden Leaf Village. Byakuya nodded and said, my plan is good, but without the cooperation of Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups, I can't lead Naruto to that point. Of course, I also can't do it without Black Zetsu-senpai's guidance. Black Zetsu accepted Byakuya's praise calmly. He seemed to remember something and then asked Byakuya, Byakuya, are you here to capture the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? If so, then I don't think there's no need for you to take action against him. I have a way to make Naruto leave Hidden Leaf Village voluntarily. During the years he spent with Naruto, Black Zetsu had developed some feelings for him. He recognized a similar sense of loneliness in Naruto, both being orphans who had lost their mothers. If possible, he wanted to spare Naruto's life. Byakuya noticed Black Zetsu's thoughts and gently shook his head, saying, the Akatsuki doesn't yet have the strength to declare war on the 5 great nations. The mission to capture the tailed beasts is still being carried out in the shadows. Actually, I am here for the Uchiha. I've heard that the conflict between the Uchiha and the higher-ups of Hidden Leaf Village has reached an irreparable point. A civil war could break out in Hidden Leaf Village at any moment. After hearing that Byakuya wasn't targeting Naruto, Black Zetsu sighed with relief and then said, the Uchiha and Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups are indeed on the brink of a clash, but this task has always been handled by the Masked Man. Are you interested in it? The Masked Man is involved too? Byakuya frowned. Doesn't he know that I've already set my sights on the Uchiha? What gives him the right to interfere in my mission? You're also interested in the Uchiha? Black Zetsu asked, somewhat puzzled. Byakuya nodded and then said, I've had my eye on the Uchiha since before the Nine-Tails attack. Once an Uchiha awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan, capturing the tailed beasts becomes much easier. That's why I intentionally got close to Shizue Uchiha, to get the Uchiha clan to join the Akatsuki. Upon hearing this, Black Zetsu's expression changed, and he said, the Masked Man is also planning to target the Uchiha. He wants to eliminate the Uchiha. Are you two planning to clash? Chapter 284, Itachi Uchiha's resolution. After muttering a few words to himself, Black Zetsu calmed down and said to Byakuya, the Masked Man's plan is to recruit Itachi Uchiha. There may not be a fundamental conflict between you two, and perhaps you could try cooperating. To Black Zetsu, both Byakuya and Obito were important pieces on the chessboard. If any rift appeared between the two of them, it would be a great loss and could easily affect the plan to collect the tailed beasts and resurrect his mother. Cooperate with the Masked Man? Byakuya's expression darkened before he said, I've had my eye on the Uchiha long before him. Why should I give up the Uchiha clan to him? Besides, the Masked Man has repeatedly provoked you, Black Zetsu-senpai. I've grown tired of him. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was the one in charge of the Eye of the Moon plan. Hearing this, Black Zetsu felt a pang of frustration. The conflict between Byakuya and Obito had started as a small matter, but now it was subtly evolving into two opposing factions. Although both sides aimed to collect the tailed beasts and resurrect the 10 tails, Byakuya's Akatsuki and Obito's Hidden Mist Village had little interaction, and neither notified the other when acting. Now, both Byakuya and Obito were vying for control of the Uchiha. This could easily spiral out of control. Should he advise Byakuya to give up or tell Obito to back off? Neither seemed like a good option. In front of Obito, Black Zetsu was merely the will of Madara, not the man himself, and had no authority to command Obito. On the other hand, in front of Byakuya, his position was higher than Obito's, but lacking the ability to command Obito would surely make Byakuya question his own authority. For a moment, Black Zetsu found himself in a dilemma, unsure of how to proceed. After thinking for a long time, Black Zetsu expressionlessly said, whether you cooperate or clash is none of my concern, as long as it doesn't affect the tailed beast collection plan. You are free to act as you wish. I will not interfere. With that, Black Zetsu burrowed underground and vanished from Byakuya's sight. Byakuya watched as Black Zetsu left, lost in thought. His coming here to inform Black Zetsu about the Uchiha was to force Black Zetsu to make a choice between him and Obito. However, Black Zetsu had been avoiding making a choice, which was not a wise approach. It could easily lead to resentment from both sides. But, if Black Zetsu was truly smart, he wouldn't have kept obsessing over Indra. After all, Ashura was the better candidate for being a hand to mold. Time passed quickly, and several months went by. With the passing of time, the news of Shizue Uchiha's disappearance gradually faded from people's minds. The villagers only remembered him during the Hidden Clouds Village War and would nostalgically think of the Uchiha who had made great contributions. Originally, the Uchiha clan's ambitions, suppressed by Shizue's death, began to show signs of revival. To avoid conflict between the clan and the village, Itachi had been working tirelessly, cursing his foolish clan members in his heart, before arriving at the Root organization's base. Guided by the Root ninjas, Itachi eventually met Denzo at the training ground. Seeing Denzo there, Itachi was somewhat surprised. Denzo, now in his 60s, could still adapt to high-intensity training? Or was this just a show of strength, trying to intimidate him? Sensing Itachi's presence behind him, Denzo wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Itachi, how's the intel I asked you to collect?" Itachi nodded and respectfully handed over the information. Denzo glanced at it, and his brows immediately furrowed. The information Itachi provided was flawless, detailing the movements of the Uchiha and lists of materials purchased from outside. However, the real problem was that Itachi had handed over these truthful pieces of intel to Denzo. This meant Itachi had already sided with Denzo, hoping to resolve the conflict between the clan and the village through him. With Shizue's tragic fate as a lesson, Itachi shouldn't have made such a foolish decision. Besides Denzo, Byakuya was also quietly observing Itachi. Unlike the Itachi from the original timeline, who had witnessed Shizue's tragic death, this Itachi still harbored a sliver of hope. It was this faint hope that prevented Itachi from awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, even without witnessing Shizue's tragic death, Itachi still chose not to trust his clan, and instead, he disclosed all of the Uchiha clan's intel to Denzo, believing that everything was part of his plan. At this moment, Byakuya suddenly had an interesting thought in his mind. He used a communication device to contact Shizue. "Shizue, I need you to do something." After hearing Byakuya's plan, Shizue's heart skipped a beat, but he still agreed to it. After his observations of Itachi had been going on for months, it was time to test the true thoughts of Itachi. If they continued to delay, Itachi might do something irrational. After a moment of contemplation, Shizue spoke to Itachi. "Based on the intelligence you provided, it seems like the Uchiha clan is planning another coup, and the mastermind behind this coup is your father, Fugaku Uchiha. So now the question remains. How do you plan to stop this coup? Will you try to control Fugaku like I did, or will you take matters into your own hands and eliminate the ninjas who are planning the coup?" Itachi's face changed drastically, and he immediately asked, "How do you know about Shizue's situation? Did you do something to him?" Shizue's Denzo nodded and replied, "That's right, I was the one who made Shizue disappear." The Uchiha clan, from top to bottom, has always harbored thoughts of rebellion. Even if we control Fugaku, we can't stop the Uchiha clan's hostility toward the village. That's why I took out Shizue Uchiha and stopped your coup. Denzo snorted, "The Uchiha and the village are two forces that are doomed to never integrate. I never thought there would be a day when the Uchiha and the village could live in peace." It was at that moment, a grin appeared on Denzo's lips. "But, I can give you an opportunity, a chance for a few Uchiha to survive. If you kill all the Uchiha ninjas and defect from the village, taking all the blame upon yourself, I can ensure that the Uchiha children survive." Upon hearing this, Itachi froze, shocked by Denzo's words. He never expected Denzo to say something like this. Shizue also hadn't expected this. What he had just said was all planned by Byakuya. He himself would never give such a ridiculous order. Forcing Uchiha to exterminate his own clan, simply with the promise of protecting the Uchiha orphans. Itachi remained silent for a long while before he spoke to Denzo. "Denzo-sama, there are many ninjas in the Uchiha police force whose strength rivals mine. With just my own strength, I fear I won't be able to deal with all of the Uchiha clan's ninjas." Chapter 285, Break Up. Before agreeing to Denzo's conditions, Itachi went through a difficult decision-making process. After careful consideration, he ultimately made the seemingly absurd choice. From the moment his father took him to the battlefield at Hidden Stones Village in the Fourth Great Ninja War when he was just 4 years old, Itachi began thinking like the Hokage. He abandoned immature impulsiveness and embraced absolute rationality and calm. Given the current power balance between the Uchiha and the village, even with all the preparations in the world, the Uchiha clan had no hope of defeating the village leadership. In a recent high-level meeting, his father had proposed a ridiculous plan. Fugaku intended to capture the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and use the power of the Nine-Tails to force the Hokage faction to yield. His parents had never considered how chaotic releasing the Nine-Tails would be. Even if they succeeded in taking the Hokage position, they would still be unable to defend against external threats. Though Denzo was sinister and cunning, he had considered the village's well-being. His plan to use Itachi to eliminate Uchiha ninjas would minimize the damage to the village and prevent civil war at the lowest cost. However, this approach was too cruel for the Uchiha clan. But if the Uchiha did start a coup, the consequences would be far worse. Not only would the Uchiha clan be branded as traitors, losing centuries of honor, but the village would also suffer immense losses. The most crucial aspect was that Denzo offered an irresistible deal: as long as Itachi killed all the Uchiha ninjas and defected from the village, taking all the blame on himself, Denzo would spare the children who had not yet become ninjas. This included Itachi's younger brother, Sasuke. With this arrangement, the Uchiha clan could slowly repopulate and eventually reintegrate into the village after a few decades. As for the rest of the clan, those who harbored thoughts of rebellion had to be prepared to face death. When Itachi gave his response, Shizue felt deeply disappointed. He had hoped that Itachi, upon receiving such an absurd order, would lash out at him, but Itachi remained far too calm, so calm that it disappointed him. Sighing internally, Shizue spoke without expression. I believe in your strength. On that day, I will be there in front of you. If you cannot eliminate the Uchiha ninjas, I will take care of it for you. However, this matter cannot be done in my name. You will have to speak with the third Hokage. Itachi nodded and replied, if it comes to that, I will personally visit the Hokage office. There is no need to trouble you any further, Denzo-sama. With that, Itachi turned and left the root base. Once Itachi had gone, Byakuya appeared in front of Shizue, speaking in a quiet tone. Shizue, I didn't expect that the Uchiha you personally trained, Itachi, would be so ruthless. When you ordered him to eliminate the Uchiha ninjas, he agreed without hesitation. However, my plan to test Itachi worked well. Itachi truly revealed his true thoughts. He has no loyalty to the Uchiha clan. Shizue fell silent, unwilling to speak. His eyes kept flickering as he processed his disappointment. When testing Itachi earlier, he had hoped that, if Itachi attacked him, he could reveal his true identity and offer to cooperate with him. Unfortunately, Itachi didn't make any move, which made Shizue deeply disappointed. The bond of friendship between them was now effectively broken. Byakuya observed Shizue's reaction, showing no particular emotion. Itachi's actions now were exactly what he had done in the original timeline. For Itachi, the village was more important than the clan, and his younger brother was more important than the village. So, when faced with Denzo's threat, Itachi chose to exterminate his clan to protect his brother. However, Itachi had never truly considered whether Sasuke would accept his plan. These matters were of no concern to Byakuya. Whether Shizue revealed his identity or continued to conceal it, Byakuya could maximize his gains. After all, whether Itachi became Shizue's subordinate or joined Obi's faction, he would still be under Byakuya's control. After leaving the root base, Itachi made his way to the vicinity of the Naka shrine under the cover of night. He checked his surroundings for any Uchiha clan members before calling out into the empty space, "Come out, masked man. I need your help." Obi, who had been nearby, heard this and calmly appeared in front of Itachi. He gazed at Itachi with interest, asking, "Itachi, what made you decide you need my help today? Have you stopped doubting my identity? Or have you finally decided to leave the stinking pit of Hidden Leaf Village and join me as my subordinate?" Itachi maintained a stoic expression and replied, "If you agree to my conditions, I will join your organization and become your subordinate. But I don't know if you have the capability to meet my request." Toby laughed as if hearing a joke, then said, "There aren't many things in the ninja world that can stump me. Go ahead, tell me what you need." Itachi took a deep breath and stated, "I want you to help me eliminate all the Uchiha in the police force building. Can you do that?" Tobi's expression shifted slightly, revealing a hint of skepticism. Is Itachi losing his mind? Why would he want help to eliminate Uchiha? Isn't he from the same clan as them? After a brief pause, Tobi asked, "Does this include your parents?" Itachi shook his head. "I'll handle my parents personally. I only need you to deal with the Uchiha in the police force building." Seeing Tobi remain silent, Itachi probed, "Is it a no or yes? Or is it that you don't want to harm your former clan?" Tobi snorted coldly, then said, "Fine. I agree to your conditions. The Uchiha of Hidden Leaf Village don't mean much to me anyway. I'm just surprised at your resolve." For Tobi, whether the Uchiha of Hidden Leaf Village lived or died was irrelevant. In the end, everyone in the ninja world would live in the dream of infinite Tsukuyomi, where dead loved ones and friends would be resurrected. Compared to the world of infinite Tsukuyomi, the real world was nothing but a nightmare. Itachi no longer cared for his Uchiha clan, so Tobi felt no reason to care either. If he did, all the ninjas he had cared for were already long dead. Once Tobi agreed to his terms, Itachi didn't linger. Eliminating all the Uchiha ninjas wouldn't be an easy task. He needed to track the movements of every Uchiha member to ensure no one escaped. After Itachi left, Black Zetsu emerged from the ground and spoke to Tobi. "Tobi, are you really going to help Itachi exterminate the Uchiha clan? That's your family, and it's Madara's family as well." Obi glanced at Black Zetsu without expression and replied, Black Zetsu, you should know by now. Madara and I stopped caring about the clan long ago. In our eyes, the entire ninja world is what matters. Clansmen and such are like some dust on the village, needed to be cleaned. Chapter 286, Prelude. As he watched Obito fall deeper into his fervent dreams, Black Zetsu couldn't help but sneer internally. Both Madara and Obito, like Black Zetsu, harbored fantasies of resurrecting the Ten Tails and leading all of humanity into the dream world of infinite Tsukimi, an eternal paradise without war, where everyone could achieve their desires and live in everlasting happiness. However, they were unaware of the truth. Black Zetsu, the creation they saw as their servant, was actually a product of infinite Tsukimi, having been once human. After the God Tree absorbed both their chakra and souls, these ancient humans were left with only their bodies. The infinite Tsukimi, from the very beginning, was merely a lie designed to deceive Indra. Unfortunately, every reincarnation of Indra had been a failure, unable to meet the requirements to collect the tailed beasts, which hindered the success of the infinite Tsukimi plan. This had led to Black Zetsu's mother being trapped on the moon for nearly 1,000 years. But that was all in the past. This time, Black Zetsu had spent several decades orchestrating the plan. Not only had he unearthed a talent like Byakuya, but he had also guided Ashura's growth, significantly increasing the likelihood of success. The only issue was Byakuya's rapid development. In less than a decade, Byakuya had gone from being an Akatsuki member to the mastermind behind several ninja villages, commanding multiple Hokage-level ninja. Even Nagato, the wielder of the Rinnegan, listened to him without question. Black Zetsu was worried that Byakuya might grow beyond his control. After the resurrection of the Ten Tails, he feared Byakuya might refuse to activate the infinite Tsukimi. After all, unlike the failures of Obito and Madara, Byakuya had never faced much hardship. He didn't need infinite Tsukimi to escape the harshness of reality. As Black Zetsu contemplated how to counterbalance Byakuya, he realized that, unlike his ungrateful siblings Hagoromo and Hamura, he had inherited only part of his mother's power. He knew that defeating a Hokage-level ninja alone was impossible. Thus, he could only rely on Obito to help manage Byakuya. Keeping Byakuya and Obito in a competitive relationship was the best way to manipulate both, allowing Black Zetsu to remain the ultimate winner. After a long moment of thought, Black Zetsu spoke to Obito, I know your ideals, and Madara's too, but there are others who are eyeing the Uchiha clan as well. Obito frowned, clearly displeased. Who else is after the Uchiha? Byakuya. Black Zetsu said flatly. According to reports from Shiro, Byakuya recently left Hidden Rain Village and has been active near Hidden Leaf Village. I suspect Byakuya is planning to act against the Uchiha as well. Do you remember the Night of the Nine Tails? Obito's expression darkened upon hearing this. Of course, he remembered the Night of the Nine Tails. Back then, he had intended to release the Nine Tails on the night Kushina gave birth, using its power to weaken Hidden Leaf Village while also collecting the beast. However, the summoning contract he had with the Nine Tails disappeared, and he was defeated by the fourth Hokage, his former teacher. Had it not been for Black Zetsu's modifications to his body, he would have died that night. It was only after escaping that he learned Byakuya had been nearby all along but had refrained from intervening, watching him get defeated by the fourth Hokage and then mocking him afterward. Byakuya had laughed at him, saying that he was too weak to take on the Nine Tails at that time and that his plans to gather the tailed beasts were progressing too slowly. Now, years later, he had spent time influencing Itachi, trying to exploit the tensions between the Uchiha and Hidden Leaf Village, in the hopes of creating a Mangekyo Sharingan subordinate. Yet Byakuya was now eyeing his prey again. Black Zetsu noticed Obito's displeasure and pressed on. Obito, why don't you just give up on working with Itachi? Byakuya has already set his sights on the Uchiha. Obito glanced at Black Zetsu, then replied with a cold sneer, are you saying I'm inferior to Byakuya? Just because he wants my prey, I should just step aside? Black Zetsu shook his head. I only think that a more efficient approach would be to avoid conflict with him. Byakuya's goal is also to collect the tailed beasts, and there's no need for us to clash. Once the tailed beasts are collected, we can deal with him as we wish. Obito, as though recalling something amusing, gave a cold laugh and said, Byakuya doesn't understand the Uchiha. His methods won't work on them. I will prove that I am far more capable than he is. A sharp glint flashed in Obito's eyes. Obito knew in certain aspects, he couldn't measure up to Byakuya. Byakuya was a genius even more talented than Kakashi, and when Obito had been around Madara, he could feel that Madara greatly admired Byakuya. Had it been him and Byakuya who fell into the hole together, Byakuya might have inherited Madara's legacy and become the executor of the Moon's Eye plan. But what Obito couldn't stand the most was that self-righteous genius attitude. Even though the reality was dull and fake, he didn't want to always lose to Byakuya. He wanted to prove that he was stronger than these so-called geniuses and that the Uchiha clan was superior to the Uzumaki clan. With his fighting spirit reignited, Obito's resolve grew. Black Zetsu, sighing, quietly retreated into the shadows. This upcoming war between the Uchiha and Hidden Leaf Village was just a stage. Byakuya and Obito were the actors, and Black Zetsu was merely the silent observer in the audience, waiting patiently for the performance to unfold. After receiving Obito's promise, Itachi returned home. His mother, Mikoto Uchiha, had prepared dinner, and the family sat around the table eating in an oppressive, tense silence. The atmosphere had been like this ever since Shisui had gone missing. Itachi knew that Fugaku planned to initiate a coup. Fugaku suspected that Itachi had killed Shisui, and a severe rift had formed between father and son. Sasuke, holding a perfect report card, had been eagerly awaiting praise. But seeing the tension in the air, he was unsure of how to react. Fugaku glanced at both Sasuke and Itachi before speaking in a calm voice. After dinner, came to my study. I need to talk to you. Itachi nodded silently, finishing his meal quickly before heading to the study. After closing the study door, Fugaku activated his Sharingan and spoke coldly, "Tomorrow night, I will lead the Uchiha clan in a coup." Itachi froze in place at hearing those words. Fugaku noticed Itachi's stunned silence and continued, "Unbothered, our plan is to kidnap the Jinchuriki and release the Nine Tails. While the defense forces are distracted, we will attack the Hokage building and capture the third Hokage. For this day, the clan has endured for more than a decade. And so, I will be waiting for you at the clan meeting tomorrow. If you are still an Uchiha, then join me in the coup." Fugaku laid out his entire plan without a second thought for Itachi's feelings. If they kept delaying, the pressure on the clan would eventually drive them mad. The village owed the Uchiha too much, and these debts needed to be repaid. After speaking, Fugaku left the study, leaving Itachi alone to silently reflect on what had been said. Chapter 287, The Night of Annihilation. As time ticked away, Itachi gazed out the window, watching the sun set and rise again. Itachi spent the entire night deep in thought, not leaving the study or giving Fugaku a decisive answer. Or perhaps, in his heart, he had already made his decision. After breakfast, Itachi reported for duty at the surveillance room. Skillfully observing the monitors throughout the day, Itachi glanced at the root ninja assigned to the same surveillance mission. Without further delay, he exited the room. The time to make his choice had finally arrived. Leaving the root base, Itachi moved swiftly and resolutely toward the Hokage building. In the dimly lit meeting room, the third Hokage had been waiting for him for some time. Sitting at the head of the table, the Hyzarin looked down at Itachi, who was kneeling on the floor. "Itachi, I'm glad you've chosen to stand with the village, but is there truly no way to stop your father?" Itachi nodded, his voice low and solemn. "I cannot persuade my father and the clan head, who have descended into madness. They have already made up their minds to stage a coup, and it will happen tonight." "Tonight?" The third Hokage's eyes widened slightly, his brow furrowing. "So tonight will be another night of bloodshed. If only your father and the others could reconsider. I truly don't want to raise my hand against my comrades in the village. However, it's fortunate you're here. If you hadn't reported the coup, the cost of suppressing it would have been unimaginably high. A single misstep, and the village might not even survive." Raising his head, Itachi addressed the Hokage. "Lord Third, although I can't stop the clan from initiating the coup, I can stop the coup itself." Hearing this, the third Hokage's interest was piqued. He gestured for Itachi to continue. For a village like Hidden Leaf Village, suppressing a bloodline clan like the Uchiha wasn't an insurmountable task. After all, Hidden Mist Village had waged its infamous Bloody Mist purges against bloodline clans in recent years, wiping them out with ease. However, Hidden Leaf Village was different. There was no animosity between its bloodline clans and ordinary ninjas. Before the Uchiha acted on their rebellion, the third Hokage lacked the justification to mobilize the entire village against them. At his disposal were only the Anbu and Denzo's root division. However, relying solely on these two forces to suppress the Uchiha police force would be extremely difficult. Before Shishui's disappearance, even taking him down had been an uncertainty. If there were any other way to resolve this rebellion, it would undoubtedly be preferable. Under the third Hokage's scrutiny, Itachi calmly spoke. "Lord Third, tonight I will eliminate every clan member involved in the coup. I will snuff out this rebellion before it can begin." The third Hokage's eyes widened as he struggled to maintain his composure. What had he just heard? Itachi's method of preventing the coup was to personally kill all those involved? Wasn't this too extreme? Could it be that Tobirama-sensei and Denzo were right all along? Was the Uchiha clan truly an innately evil clan? Otherwise, why would Itachi conceive such a terrifying plan? Or had Itachi completely embraced the will of fire, ready to sacrifice himself and his family for the village? The most pressing question was, did Itachi really have the power to eliminate the police force? The third Hokage's expression darkened with doubt. This wasn't underestimating Itachi, he was undoubtedly Hidden Leaf Village's greatest genius in the past decade, but this was an entire force of Uchiha. Unless Itachi, like Shizui, has awakened the Mengekyo Sharingan. Or perhaps, as the rumors suggested, Itachi had killed Shizui for the sake of power, stealing his Mengekyo Sharingan. Seeming to anticipate the Hokage's doubts, Itachi added, I alone do not possess the strength to destroy the entire Uchiha clan. However, a masked man with space-time abilities has approached me recently, seeking to recruit me as his subordinate. I agreed, on the condition that he assist me in eliminating the Uchiha. He is an Uchiha with the Mengekyo Sharingan. Against the police force, his abilities are more than sufficient. A masked Uchiha with space-time powers and a Mengekyo Sharingan? The third Hokage's expression shifted as he recalled something, his face darkening. Could he be the one responsible for the Nine Tails incident? Itachi nodded. I suspect he is. Once I become his subordinate, I will investigate his identity and motives. The third Hokage asked, is there any chance to use this opportunity to eliminate him? Itachi shook his head slightly. I don't know. I currently lack sufficient information about him. Even with your strength, Lord Third, I'm afraid taking down the masked man would be difficult. Then there's no helping it. The third Hokage sighed softly, his tone carrying deep regret. I'll leave the task of stopping the Uchiha and investigating the masked man to you. The road ahead will be difficult, and it's all my fault for not negotiating with Fugaku sooner. Please do not blame yourself, Lord Third, Itachi replied calmly. This is the fault of the Uchiha clan. I am only correcting their mistakes. After I eliminate the coup participants, I ask that you declare me a rogue ninja. It will help me earn the masked man's trust and uncover the truth behind the scenes. My younger brother, Sasuke, is in your care. He's just a child, he knows nothing. The third Hokage nodded earnestly. I promise you, as long as I live, no one will lay a hand on Sasuke. Tonight, there will be no Uchiha coup. Instead, it will be claimed that you killed your entire clan for the sake of power. The Uchiha will remain recognized as shinobi of the village. Having reached this agreement, Itachi departed from the Hokage building. He was now set to carry out the plan of annihilation. Shortly after Itachi left, Shizui appeared, watching Itachi's retreating figure with a cold, murderous glint in his eyes. Byakuya, standing nearby, also gazed at Itachi's departing form and spoke calmly, Shizui, it seems Itachi has chosen a path completely opposite to yours. Taking a deep breath, Shizui turned to Byakuya and replied, Byakuya-sama, I'll leave tonight's matter in your hands. My task, along with the root ninjas, will be to preemptively move the clan members outside the village. But the police force? I'll have to rely on you for that. Itachi plans to deal with the police force himself, but he surely has help, Shizui added. Byakuya nodded, a look of anticipation spreading across his face. I have a good idea who Itachi's help might be. It's been a long time since we last met. I'm curious to see how much he's grown. Chapter 288, The Uchiha Brothers. It's been a long time since I fought him. I wonder how much he has grown. Repeating Byakuya's earlier words in his heart, Shizui showed a look of surprise and cautiously asked, Byakuya-sama, are you saying you know the ninja influencing Itachi from behind the scenes? Byakuya nodded, looked at Shizui, and said, there aren't many ninjas in the ninja world who can freely bypass Hidden Leaf Village's barrier, and even fewer who would target both Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha. If I'm not mistaken, the one influencing Itachi is the masked man. The masked man? Shizui seemed to have heard the name before but couldn't recall exactly who it referred to. Seeing Shizui's confusion, Byakuya reminded him, he's the masked man who attacked Hidden Leaf Village 7 years ago, causing the deaths of the 4th Hokage and the disappearance of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. At those words, Shizui's face instantly turned serious. During the Nine-Tails night, he had been out on a mission, but he was well aware of the chaos, the largest upheaval in Hidden Leaf Village's history. He understood the price the village had paid to quell it. If the 4th Hokage and his wife hadn't died in that incident, the relationship between the Uchiha and the village would never have reached the point of breaking. At worst, the Uchiha would have been heavily suppressed by the Senju faction, completely extinguishing any hope of becoming Hokage. Byakuya didn't stop revealing secrets and dropped another bombshell. After the masked man fled from Hidden Leaf Village 7 years ago, he remained active in the underground black markets across the ninja world. I've conducted a lot of investigations on him and discovered a shocking truth. Pausing intentionally, Byakuya continued, the masked man who attacked the village is an Uchiha ninja. He possesses a Mangekyo Sharingan with space-time abilities. A Mangekyo with space-time abilities. Shizue was stunned and muttered, but aside from me, no one else in the clan should have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Even if someone else had awakened it, why attack the village? Doing so would only make the higher-ups of Hidden Leaf Village suspect the clan. What good could possibly come from this? Shizue hadn't met the masked man, but that didn't stop him from questioning his sanity. Although many Uchiha were impulsive and prone to reckless actions, none of them would do something so utterly pointless, unless the masked man's sole goal was the destruction of Hidden Leaf Village. Seeing Shizue's bewildered expression, Byakuya smirked and said, "From the looks of it, you know less about the masked man than I do. Have you ever considered that there might be Uchiha outside of Hidden Leaf Village?" Shizue was taken aback and then cautiously asked, "Byakuya-sama, are you suggesting that the masked man isn't from Hidden Leaf Village, but instead related to Madara Uchiha?" Byakuya nodded and continued, "During my time in Hidden Leaf Village, I specifically searched the library for records. After Madara Uchiha left Hidden Leaf Village, he spent 2 years outside. 2 years is more than enough time for Madara to have descendants. I have reason to suspect the masked man is a descendant of Madara. As for their goals, I'm still uncertain, but one thing is certain, their ambition isn't limited to Hidden Leaf Village. Otherwise, they wouldn't be manipulating Itachi's life trajectory in secret, pushing him to extremes just to cultivate a pair of capable eyes." Pausing, Byakuya added, "When you move later, be careful of Itachi Sharingan. His eyes are likely on par with yours." Shizue's expression stiffened, and he looked up at the distant moon. He had originally thought resolving the conflict between the clan and the village was the hardest thing in the world. But it turned out the depths of the ninja world were far murkier than he had imagined. So the attack during the Nine Tails night really might have been carried out by the Uchiha. And the power of the Uchiha was far greater than he and his clan had realized. Yet those Uchiha who had drifted away didn't even consider them kin. Shaking his head to dispel distracting thoughts, Shizue decided to focus on saving his clan. The future could wait until the Uchiha were secure. After tonight, Hidden Leaf Village would no longer have any Uchiha. Bowing slightly to Byakuya, Shizue waved his hand and led the root ninjas toward the Uchiha clan grounds. Byakuya didn't linger either. Sensing Obito's chakra, he disappeared. Not long after, Shizue arrived at the outskirts of the Uchiha clan grounds with the root ninjas. Having taken on Denzo's role, Shizue had also inherited everything Denzo possessed, including control over these dozens of root ninjas. Aside from a few Jonin, the majority were tools marked with a cursed seal. Though they had seen Shizue and Byakuya talking earlier, they didn't dare voice any doubts. Everything Denzo-sama did was for the sake of Hidden Leaf Village, and they were the roots that protected it. As he entered the clan grounds, Shizue smelled the blood in the air and frowned. After walking a few more steps, he saw Uchiha civilians lying in pools of blood. With a grim expression, he instructed his subordinates, "Take these Uchiha to the root base. The rest of you, find the surviving Uchiha. Remember, I want them alive. Only living Uchiha can provide Sharingan continuously." "Yes, Lord Denzo." After sending most of the root ninjas away, Shizue began to sense the residual chakra in the air and headed toward Itachi's location. Although he had known for a while that he and Itachi had taken very different paths, he didn't expect Itachi to actually lay a hand on the clan. It was even crazier than he had imagined. He wondered if Itachi could make the final decision when facing his parents. Infusing chakra into his legs, Shizue activated body flicker jutsu and disappeared. Barely 10 seconds later, Shizue arrived outside the clan leader's residence. Lying in pools of blood outside were several radical Uchiha, including elders with the 3 Tomoe Sharingan who supported clan leader Fugaku. These individuals were Jonin level in strength. Shizue didn't have much sympathy for the radical Uchiha, but he still created shadow clones to send them for treatment. If he wanted to gain Byakuya-sama's favor in the future, he would need the strength of these people. Refocusing, Shizue turned his gaze to the interior of the residence. Gripping the short blade in his hand, he prepared for battle. For Itachi to defeat multiple Jonin in such a short time, his strength was likely on par with Shizue's. Although he wouldn't deal with Itachi here, he intended to give his little brother a deep lesson, one final act of education as an older brother. Chapter 289, Hidden Leaf Village's traitor. If you've chosen to stand on the village's side, then act like a man, resolve things cleanly and quickly. Ending our lives will only cause us a moment of pain, but the pain in your heart will last for a very long time. As he stepped into the house, Shizue quickly overheard the conversation between Fugaku and Itachi. Contrary to what Shizue imagined, upon learning that Itachi had betrayed the Uchiha and chosen the village, Fugaku did not react in his usual explosive anger. Instead, he quietly accepted everything and began to console Itachi Uchiha. Seeing this, Shizue couldn't help but frown. If Itachi committed the atrocity of wiping out the clan yet still received comfort, what did the clan members who fell in pools of blood outside amount to? What about those who followed Fugaku Uchiha in preparing for the coup? Must the entire Uchiha clan pay the price for the conflicts between father and son? In an instant, Shizue felt a deep sense of injustice for the radical clan members lying outside. Any remaining shred of affection he held for Itachi was now entirely gone. Itachi was far too selfish. Although his life had always been meticulously orchestrated, he had, in turn, arranged the fates of others in silence. That included the clan members sacrificed tonight and Sasuke, who was deliberately spared. At that moment, Itachi noticed footsteps behind him. Turning around, he frowned and asked, "Denzo, didn't I agree to your terms? Why are you here? Are you worried that I won't fulfill our deal?" Shizue shook his head and replied, "Our deal ends here. The next matters will be handled by the root. The root will take care of everything for you, and you can leave now." Itachi narrowed his eyes. "The Sharingan of the Uchiha cannot fall into your hands. This was never part of our agreement. If you insist on getting in my way, I won't hesitate to act against you. I'm already a rogue ninja now, I have nothing to lose." Shizue sneered coldly and retorted, "I am deeply disappointed in you. You've forgotten our promise, forgotten your vow to protect the Uchiha. You don't even have the courage of Fugaku, who dared to challenge the village's higher-ups. Promise? Courage?" Itachi's expression flickered uncertainly. He couldn't understand why Denzo would say such things to him. Nearby, Fugaku and Mikoto, awaiting death, were also stunned. They couldn't figure out why someone as cunning as Denzo would say such strange words to Itachi. But one thing was certain, there was now a crisis in Itachi's deal with the village. After a moment of contemplation, Itachi activated his Sharingan. The three black tomoe in his eyes rapidly spun and transformed into the shape of a shuriken. However, unlike Shizue's four-pointed Mengekyo Sharingan, Itachi's Mengekyo had a three-bladed design. Upon activating the Mengekyo, Itachi quickly noticed something off about Denzo. There were faint traces of a hidden jutsu on him. This person likely wasn't Denzo but someone else entirely. But why would this person disguise himself as Denzo? Where was Denzo now? Just then, Shizue removed the mask concealing his identity, revealing his familiar face. He too activated his Mengekyo Sharingan, staring intently at Itachi. Upon seeing this familiar face, Itachi could no longer remain calm. Shocked and uncertain, he asked, "Shizue, why is it you?" Of all the possibilities, Itachi had never considered that the person disguised as Denzo could be Shizue. Thinking back to the meetings and deals he had with Denzo over the past month, Itachi felt as if everything had been a surreal illusion, as if he had fallen under a powerful Genjutsu. Fugaku and Mikoto, who were waiting for their deaths, were equally stunned. They couldn't comprehend how Shizue, who had been missing for months, would appear in the clan grounds disguised as Denzo and even strike a deal with Itachi to annihilate the Uchiha. Calming his emotions with difficulty, Itachi questioned, "Shizue, why are you impersonating Denzo? Why did you issue the order to destroy the clan?" Shizue sneered and explained, "That afternoon when Fugaku decided to stage the coup, I received a summons from Denzo. He tried to ambush me to steal my Mengekyo Sharingan. But, oh well, I killed him. From that day on, I abandoned the name Shizue and began living as Denzo. As for why I issued the order to destroy the Uchiha, of course, it was to save the Uchiha. If you had dared to strike against me back then, I would have revealed my identity and cooperated with you to save the clan together." Pausing for a moment, Shizue continued, "But Itachi, your actions have greatly disappointed me. I can no longer trust you. When facing the stronger Denzo and the Senju faction, you chose to compromise. But when it came to your clan members, you showed no hesitation in attacking them. You traded their lives for the survival of a few and even struck down innocent clansmen after our agreement. Did you ever think, Itachi, that if I had compromised with Denzo back then, the Uchiha would not only lose their name tonight but all their lives as well?" Hearing Shizue's words, Itachi, Fugaku, and Mikoto were all stunned into silence, unable to comprehend it fully. They now understood Shizue's plan. He had intended to use the opportunity of the Uchiha clan's downfall to erase its name entirely, just as the Senju clan had been dissolved in the past. However, if the Uchiha lost their pride and their chance to become Hokage, how was that any different from being dead? The Uchiha valued honor above all else. Fugaku couldn't help but interject, "Shizue, since you've already taken control of the route in secret, why didn't you coordinate with us? If the route and the police force had joined forces, the success rate of the coup would have been greatly increased. We could have had a real chance at producing the fifth Hokage." Fugaku added, "I don't need to be Hokage. You can take the position as Denzo. As long as the Uchiha clan produces a Hokage, that's enough." Shizue glanced at Fugaku and sneered, "Fugaku, why is your vision so narrow? Even if we became Hokage, we wouldn't be able to deal with the Senju faction. Isn't it better to remain hidden in the root, holding the power of the Hokage without actually becoming one? Besides, the ninja world doesn't consist of only Hidden Lee Village or the Land of Fire. If you always limit your perspective to the village and spend your days scheming against the Senju faction, it's no wonder you ended up being killed by your own son." After berating Fugaku, Shizue turned to Itachi and declared, "Itachi Uchiha, traitor of Hidden Lee Village, before you leave the village after slaughtering your clan, I must punish you for your betrayal." Chapter 290, Shizue, power is eternal. Before the words were fully spoken, Shizue disappeared from his original position with a hand seal, wielding his small blade and lunging toward Itachi. Itachi raised his kunai to block Shizue's blade. Sparks flew in the darkness as their weapons clashed, the force numbing Itachi's hands, making him realize that Shizue truly intended to kill him this time. With a sigh in his heart, Itachi took the initiative, leaving a mere afterimage in his place. The two had been friends for years and had spent countless seasons training together. They knew each other's ninjutsu and taijutsu inside out. Under such circumstances, neither Shizue nor Itachi could gain the upper hand, let alone defeat the other. After another clash, both Shizue and Itachi leapt back, putting some distance between them. From several meters apart, they began casting Sharingan-based Ganjutsu, pitting their ocular powers against each other. In all their years of training, they had never used their Sharingan against one another. Unlike ordinary techniques, Sharingan Ganjutsu is a powerful Kekkei Genkai. If used in sparring, it was difficult to hold back, and one mistake could cause serious injury. But now, they were no longer friends or comrades. Their differing views on the clan and the village had led them down opposite paths, making them enemies incapable of understanding one another. The clash of Ganjutsu occurred in the void, falling into their respective eyes. Due to their Mangekyo Sharingan, both possessed strong resistance to ordinary illusions. Within moments, each had freed themselves from the Ganjutsu. Wiping sweat from his forehead, Shizue carefully observed Itachi. He had expected his years of experience with the Mangekyo to give him an edge, but to his surprise, Itachi had resisted his Ganjutsu completely. Is it because I've overused Susanoo and my ocular power is weakening? Shizue wondered. Despite this level of combat, Shizue had yet to discover the true nature of Itachi's ocular techniques. Was he really unable to teach Itachi a lesson tonight? Itachi, facing Shizue, was equally tense. Since the age of 4, when he had been saved by Shizue after falling from a cliff, he had always followed Shizue, learning and growing under his guidance. Itachi knew Shizue's talent and effort better than anyone, and because of that, he understood how strong Shizue truly was. While Shizue was currently engaging him in Ganjutsu, he hadn't yet used his ultimate weapon, Susanoo. The mutual wariness caused both of them to stand still, neither willing to strike first. Instead, they quietly waited for an opening. Inside the hall, Fugaku and Mikoto wore awkward expressions. They had been fully prepared to sacrifice their lives to support their son, even uttering words like, "Our pain is temporary, but yours will last a lifetime." Yet midway through, Denzo had suddenly appeared, only to be revealed as Shizue in disguise. All of this made Fugaku and Mikoto feel as if their earlier resolve had been a complete joke. They were like clowns performing for others' amusement. Glancing at each other, Mikoto turned to Fugaku and asked, "Fugaku, it seems like Itachi isn't a match for Shizue. Should we just commit suicide? It feels like our deaths are completely meaningless now." Hearing this, Fugaku's face turned crimson with embarrassment. He didn't know how to respond to his wife. After being scolded by Shizue earlier, his mind was still in disarray, and the resolve to support his son through death was gradually fading as time passed. He no longer had the courage to take his own life. With a heavy sigh, Fugaku suddenly seemed decades older. "I don't know what to do anymore. Let's watch Itachi and Shizue. Both of them possess the Mangekyo Sharingan. The future of the Uchiha is no longer for me to decide." Mikoto was stunned, surprised that her husband had chosen to let go. However, seeing the two figures locked in confrontation, their unwavering determination, Mikoto nodded in agreement. Perhaps the future of the Uchiha no longer belonged to Fugaku but instead lay in the hands of these two. After all, both Shizue and Itachi had awakened the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan and had the ability to lead the clan into the future. At that moment, Sasuke appeared in their field of vision, his face pale. Although still a child, Sasuke was the top student at the academy. After catching the scent of blood permeating the clan grounds, he immediately rushed toward his home. When he arrived, he saw Shizue and Itachi facing off and stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The moment Itachi noticed Sasuke, he unhesitatingly activated his Sharingan. His ocular power crossed the distance and locked onto Sasuke's eyes, instantly rendering him unconscious with a Genjutsu. Shisui also noticed Sasuke. Seeing Itachi cast a Genjutsu, he frowned and asked, "Itachi, what did you do to Sasuke?" "He's your brother, the one you explicitly wanted to protect." Itachi smiled faintly and replied, "I've given Sasuke a gift. These gifts will help him awaken the same eyes as mine." Hearing this, Shisui's expression turned serious, while Fugaku and Mikoto turned down their gazes. None of them had expected Itachi to take action against Sasuke. After a brief pause, Itachi continued, "Shisui, tonight you can take the other clan members, but you can't take Sasuke. He must harbor enough hatred to awaken a pair of powerful eyes. In the future, I'll occasionally return to Hidden Leaf Village. If I find out that Sasuke has learned the truth, I'll reveal Root's secrets to the third Hokage. I won't let you lay a finger on Sasuke. Why can't I take action against Sasuke?" After a moment of thought, Shisui said coldly, "Is your goal the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan? Isn't awakening the Mangekyo enough? Must you pursue the eternal Mangekyo?" Fugaku and Mikoto's eyes widened in disbelief as they turned to look at their son. To outsiders, the Mangekyo Sharingan was a legendary power, and even fewer knew about the eternal Mangekyo's secrets. But to the Uchiha present, the eternal Mangekyo was no secret. Ignoring their reactions, Itachi looked toward the police headquarters and said flatly, "Judging by the time, I should stop chatting with you people. My goal is the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Only by obtaining Madara Uchiha's power can I change the rules of this world. Call me hypocritical or twisted, but strength is the only path to peace." Oh, and while we were talking, the radical Uchiha Jonin at the police headquarters have likely been dealt with. Hey, it's good that those shinobi, always clamoring for a coup, are dead. Now they won't pose a threat to the village. Itachi then smiled at Shisui. "Shisui, after I leave Hidden Leaf Village, take care of yourself. Don't die in this village. I need you to witness the day I achieve the eternal Mangekyo." With that, Itachi dissolved into a flock of crows, vanishing into the night. Chapter 291, Obito's suspicion 10 minutes earlier. Upon arriving at the Uchiha police headquarters, Byakuya sensed the chaos unfolding inside, a battle completely one-sided. To be precise, it was the masked man, Obito, single-handedly massacring the Uchiha police force. Judging by their skill in ninjutsu and taijutsu, it was nearly impossible for Obito to simultaneously deal with more than 10 Three-Tomoe Sharingan Jonin of the Uchiha police force. These were elite shinobi capable of giving even the strongest Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, significant trouble. On the battlefield, they could rival an entire army of hundreds. However, with the spatial abilities of the Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan, Obito didn't need to fight them head-on. Using Kamui's intangibility and space-time teleportation, he effectively turned the situation into a slaughter. When Byakuya stepped into the police building, Obito was busy toying with a young Uchiha Kunoichi. The girl, wearing her police uniform, activated her Sharingan upon noticing Obito, hurling kunai one after another. Yet against Obito's intangibility, all physical attacks were futile. Byakuya noticed the girl's Three-Tomoe Sharingan and mused at how someone with such a Kekkei Genkai could appear so weak. Still, with proper training, she might someday become a Jonin-level shinobi. Watching Obito kill what could be his future subordinates, Byakuya could no longer tolerate it. He picked up a kunai from the ground, attached an explosive tag, and threw it at Obito. Passing harmlessly through Obito's body, it struck the wall behind him and detonated, causing a minor explosion. The explosion drew the attention of Izumi Uchiha and Obito. Seeing the newcomer clad in black with a face-concealing mask like his own, Obito frowned. He knew exactly who it was his partner, Byakuya. No one but Byakuya would appear in the Uchiha compound in the dead of night, and no one but him would dare interfere with Obito's work. Byakuya wasn't even subtle about opposing him, saving the very targets Obito was assigned to eliminate. Byakuya flashed to Izumi's side just as she turned to thank him. He patted her shoulder lightly, planting a wood-style seed, and instructed, "Check inside for any survivors. Outside the compound, someone will guide you to safety. Don't overthink it, and don't ask any questions." Izumi nodded gratefully and rushed deeper into the police headquarters. However, as soon as she entered, the wood-style seed sprouted. Vines burst forth, tangling her limbs and dragging her underground. The same fate befell other surviving members of the police force. As they tried to escape, vines wrapped around them and pulled them into the earth. Seeing this, Obito's irritation boiled over. "Byakuya, where the hell are you taking these Uchihas? These are my spoils of war, and I will decide their fate." Byakuya turned to Obito, his voice cold and mocking. "Your spoils? Hey! You were merely hired as a tool by Itachi. Eliminating the Uchiha clan was Denzo's order, carried out by Itachi. You are just a helper. What claim do you have over these Uchihas? As for my interference, they are mine because Itachi serves me. I trained him. Soon, he will be my subordinate, and therefore, these lives belong to me. Obito's temper was barely under control. He needed these 3 Tomoe Sharingan for Izanagi. Byakuya stealing them infuriated him. Byakuya sneered, his mockery unrelenting. Oh, so Itachi is your subordinate now? Funny, I thought he was shaped by the will of fire under the 3rd Hokage's supervision. Born a shinobi of Hidden Leaf Village, loyal to Hidden Leaf Village. And let's be honest, if not for me and Denzo sowing distrust between Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha, do you really think your little plan would have worked? Obito's expression darkened behind the mask. You've been working with Denzo. Byakuya nodded, as if stating the obvious. I've always worked with Denzo, and manipulated him. Who do you think amplified the Uchiha threat narrative that widened the rift between Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha clan? Without us influencing Itachi from the shadows, you wouldn't have him as your puppet today. Byakuya's words struck a nerve. Obito's anger surged as the implications sank in. Byakuya, what exactly are you planning? Byakuya ignored the question and instead continued with his withering tirade. Your reckless contact with Itachi could have exposed your identity. If Itachi had reported your existence to Hidden Leaf Village, they might have reconciled with the Uchiha clan and hunted you down as the mastermind behind the Nine Tails attack. Do you want to see a united and powerful Hidden Leaf Village? Or have you forgotten your mission to collect the tailed beasts and execute the Moon's Eye plan? Remember, you screwed up the Nine Tails incident, Obito. Who cleaned up that mess for you? Me. Byakuya's frustration was palpable, like a teacher scolding an unruly child. Obito couldn't stand being talked down to, especially not by Byakuya. I've had enough. Obito snapped, forming the seals for wood style, cutting sprigs. Wooden spikes erupted from his sleeve, flying toward Byakuya. Byakuya didn't move. Instead, he mirrored Obito's technique, launching identical wooden spikes in return. The 2 projectiles collided midair, splintering harmlessly. Obito froze, his expression hidden but his disbelief clear in his voice. When did you master wood style? Obito had always relied on his unique combination of wood style and the Sharingan. Even in the face of defeat, he comforted himself with the knowledge that his abilities were unique, granting him an edge in the long run. But now Byakuya had wood style too, shattering that fragile illusion. Byakuya smirked, a hint of derision in his tone. The same way you obtained wood style, from Black Zetsu. After I captured the 2 Tails Jinchuriki and sent Kakazu to secure other village, Black Zetsu acknowledged my contributions and shared the method with me. Obito stiffened, fury and doubt clouding his mind. Black Zetsu gave Byakuya wood style? Why? Black Zetsu was supposed to be his ally, his creation. Was Zetsu plotting something behind his back? Could Byakuya and Black Zetsu be working together to betray him? Obito's grip tightened, his thoughts spiraling. For the first time, true suspicion and unease bloomed in his heart. Chapter 292, Remember, I am the leader of Akatsuki. Hearing that it was Black Zetsu who helped Byakuya master the wood style, Obito's mind began to suspect whether the 2 had secret dealings. Otherwise, why would Black Zetsu give such a powerful ability to Byakuya? After some careful thought, Obito dismissed his suspicions. In the minds of most ninja in the world, wood style was legendary, a Kekkei Genkai that only the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, had mastered. Any ninja who could awaken wood style was considered a once-in-a-century genius. But for him and Madara, that was not the case. After Madara awakened the fabled Rinnegan and gained divine abilities, he created the special life form known as the White Zetsu. This greatly reduced the difficulty of transplanting wood style. As long as someone possessed significant proficiency in yin-yang release and an extraordinary body, transplanting wood style became a straightforward and risk-free process. Even though Obito was reluctant to admit it, he had to acknowledge Byakuya's talent. Byakuya was a rare genius in the ninja world, far surpassing Kakashi and even prodigies like Itachi and Shizui. After all, Itachi and Shizui were once called geniuses only because people believed they could one day rival the Sannin. Byakuya, on the other hand, possessed strength comparable to the Sannin from the very start. His current power had grown so much that even Obito had no absolute confidence in defeating him. But it was impossible for Obito to willingly hand over his spoils of war. If he conceded to Byakuya again this time, he would truly become subordinate to Byakuya, losing control over the Eye of the Moon plan. Having made up his mind, Obito's figure flashed as he charged toward Byakuya. Byakuya glanced at Obito out of the corner of his eye and said calmly, "Attacking a comrade is forbidden in the organization. Are you sure you want to fight me?" Obito didn't reply. He was carefully searching for an opening in Byakuya's defenses, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. After a few attempts to materialize from his intangible state, Obito still couldn't find an opportunity to attack Byakuya. On the contrary, frequent use of his Kemui had begun to drain his stamina rapidly. When Byakuya's sword slashed through Obito's intangible body, Byakuya smirked. "Obito, your intangibility may make you immune to all attacks, but you can only harm me when you materialize. Once I understand that, I'm invincible before you. I bet this is exactly how the fourth Hokage defeated you back then." Byakuya then smiled and shrugged his shoulders. "Besides your space-time ability, your taijutsu and ninjutsu are pretty mediocre. I have reason to believe that before Black Zetsu recruited you, you were probably the dead last in your academy class." The dead last remark pierced Obito's heart like a knife. As he materialized to thrust a wooden spike toward Byakuya, Obito suddenly felt his movements slow down unnaturally. Quickly retreating, Obito stared at Byakuya with extreme caution. He had no idea where this anomaly in his body had come from. He was certain he had stayed intangible almost the entire time, and only dematerialized when he was far enough from Byakuya. Seeing this, Byakuya floated in midair, looking down at Obito and said, "I remember telling you before, space-time ninjutsu isn't invincible. I have countless ways to counter your ability. Setting explosive tags at your landing points is one way. Altering the environment in secret to create favorable conditions is another. After clearing out the small fry, I secretly released a paralytic gas. This gas won't cause any fatal damage, but it will dull a ninja's reflexes. Now then, are you feeling weak right now? Struggling to even mold chakra?" As Byakuya casually revealed his plan, Obito's expression darkened. Ever since his defeat by the fourth Hokage's Flying Thunder God combo, he had grown far more cautious. He never acted rashly without absolute certainty. But even with his caution, Byakuya had still managed to trick him. Byakuya had spoken confidently about defeating him through taijutsu and ninjutsu, only to resort to underhanded tactics like poison. As time ticked on, Obito could feel his strength slipping further. Stepping closer, Byakuya floated in midair and looked down at him, saying coldly, "Masked man, I know you're scheming and developing your own forces in secret. I've sent ninjas to scout Hidden Mist Village multiple times and noticed the fourth Mizukage implementing bizarre policies. Not only has he isolated the village from the world, but he's also ordered a brutal purge of the bloodline clans. More importantly, I've heard that the fourth Mizukage hasn't left Hidden Mist Village in years. Is he suddenly obsessed with studying ninjutsu at home, or is there some special reason keeping him from leaving?" Pausing, Byakuya's tone grew sharper. "Masked man, I don't oppose you secretly developing your forces. After all, you and I both share the goal of reviving the Ten-Tails. But aside from that role, you're also a member of the Akatsuki organization, my subordinate. I hope that the next time we meet, you'll show a bit more humility. Remember who the true leader of Akatsuki is, and who is the driving force behind reviving the Ten-Tails." With that, Byakuya tossed a small bottle of pills at Obito and glanced toward Shishui's location, saying expressionlessly, "These pills will neutralize the paralysis poison. Take them and get back to your mission. After this Uchiha operation is over, I want to see a full mission report from White Zetsu, and a 500-word reflection paper from you." Having said his piece, Byakuya left the scene, disappearing into the night sky, leaving Obito standing there with a stormy expression. For the umpteenth time, Byakuya had humiliated him. Not only had Byakuya exposed his secret operations in Hidden Mist Village, but he had also ordered him to write a mission report and a reflection, something Obito hadn't done since becoming Madara's successor. In front of Black Zetsu, he was the executor of the Eye of the Moon plan. In front of Hidden Mist Village's ninjas, he was the mysterious fourth Mizukage. In front of Itachi, he was the enigmatic masked man, Madara Uchiha. The more he thought about it, the angrier Obito became. He punched the wall, leaving a spiderweb of cracks while blood seeped from his knuckles. Just as he was about to continue venting, he saw Itachi Uchiha approaching. Obito quickly composed himself, suppressing his anger and acting as if nothing had happened. Chapter 293, The Ghosts of Hidden Leaf Village. Not long after leaving his family's residence, Itachi arrived at the police headquarters. Apart from meeting with the masked man, he had come specifically to check whether the clan's radical members had been eliminated. As long as these radicals were completely eradicated, the remaining women, children, and elders would lack the strength to carry out the coup. Moreover, during his earlier conversation with Shisui, Itachi had confirmed that Shisui had no ambition to become Hokage. Shisui preferred to be a shadow Hokage, working in the darkness rather than leading overtly. Under these circumstances, it was unlikely that the remaining clan members would hate the village. Instead, they would transfer their hatred onto him, harboring deep resentment toward his actions. With this, his goal was essentially achieved. He had successfully diverted the clan's hatred away from the village and solidified his role as someone willing to take extreme measures for power. The next step was to infiltrate the masked man's organization and gather intelligence. Although this path as an undercover agent was arduous, as long as it benefited the village, it was worth it. Only through such action could he find some meaning in his otherwise dull life, preventing him from slipping into despair or giving up on himself. After scanning the area, Itachi quickly located the masked man. From the surroundings, it was clear that a battle had taken place at the police headquarters. The scale of the conflict wasn't large, suggesting it had been a one-sided fight. This was likely due to the immense power of the masked man's space-time abilities, as well as the overwhelming strength of the Mangekyo Sharingan against ordinary Sharingan users. Itachi couldn't help but wonder what abilities his own newly awakened Mangekyo Sharingan contained. Were they space-time related, or did they lean toward Ganjutsu or Ninjutsu? Leaping down from the walls, Obito appeared beside Itachi and spoke, "Is everything resolved on your end?" Itachi nodded and then asked, "Masked man, how about you?" Obito hesitated, feeling somewhat awkward, but since Byakuya had taken away the Uchiha bodies, he decided to shamelessly claim the credit, saying, "These Uchiha have really grown weak over the years. It only took me 2 minutes to deal with all of them." Pausing for a moment, Obito continued, "I've upheld my end of the deal. Now it's time for you to leave Hidden Leaf Village and join my organization." Itachi, unaware of Obito's embarrassment, nodded lightly and said, "I'll join your organization, but first, there's something I'd like to know." "What is it?" "Your name," Itachi said. "If I'm going to be your subordinate, I should at least know your name, and the name of your organization." Obito glanced at the crimson moon in the sky, then at Itachi, and replied, "You can call me Madara Uchiha. As for our organization's name, it's Akatsuki." Itachi narrowed his eyes. He had just agreed to follow the masked man, yet the other party remained evasive, even unwilling to share the organization's real name. Itachi had heard of Akatsuki. It was a group active in Hidden Rain Village. The current leader of Hidden Rain Village, Yahiko, and his comrades had originated from that organization. How could Akatsuki have someone like the masked man? It was clearly a lie. As for the name Madara Uchiha, there was no need to doubt, it was definitely fake. His plan to gather intelligence by becoming the masked man's subordinate was already proving more difficult than he had anticipated. Seeing Itachi's disbelief, Obito was helpless. He had told Itachi half-truths, but the boy was too suspicious to believe him. Of course, Byakuya's propaganda played a role as well. Even though both he and Byakuya aimed to wage war against the 5 great nations and capture the tailed beasts, Obito was forced to hide in the shadows like a rat. Meanwhile, Byakuya operated as one of Hidden Rain Village's leaders, a Shadow King influencing multiple villages. Thinking of this, Obito felt a sting in his chest. He had to admit that jealousy had crept into his heart. At the police headquarters watching Itachi leave, Shizue turned to Fugaku and Mikoto, who were holding their younger son, Sasuke Uchiha. Taking a deep breath, Shizue spoke to Fugaku, "Fugaku, thanks to your son, you and Mikoto are already considered dead. From now on, you have 2 choices. Join my root forces as elite Jonin, or live with the other powerless clan members who have been relocated." Hearing Shizue present these 2 options, Mikoto instinctively hugged Sasuke tightly and said anxiously, "Can't we stay with Sasuke or take him with us?" Shizue shook his head and replied, "Mikoto, I'd like to agree with you, but tonight Sasuke is the sole survivor of the Uchiha clan, by Itachi's explicit request. But Sasuke is still so young. He can't handle such immense pressure." Mikoto tried to convince Shizue, but Fugaku stopped her. "Mikoto, this is Itachi and Shizue's decision. We can only trust them and follow through." After a pause, Fugaku looked at Shizue and asked, "Shizue, if we join Root, what will we need to do? Where have the other clan members been sent? And who are you really working for?" Shizue answered calmly, "As Root members, you'll follow Root's rules. From now on, you'll live hidden lives with no names or identities. As for where the others have been relocated, and who I serve, I can't tell you. All you need to know is that the ordinary, non-shinobi clan members will be well cared for, and it will remain that way." Fugaku and Mikoto exchanged a look and made their decision. "In that case, we will join Root and serve as its shinobi." Shizue was surprised by their decision but nodded approvingly. Root was currently in desperate need of manpower. With Fugaku and Mikoto joining as Jonin, Root's strength would increase significantly, which would benefit their future operations in Hidden Leaf Village. After finalizing the Uchiha clan's fate, Fugaku and Mikoto shared a final glance at Sasuke before following Shizue's lead into the shadows. From this moment on, they were no longer the Uchiha clan leader and his wife but nameless shinobi serving en route. Shizui looked at Sasuke for a moment before transforming back into Denzo's appearance using the transformation jutsu. In the shinobi world, only a clan that had already died could avoid true destruction. Most of the Uchiha had been relocated across the shinobi world, while those who remained in Hidden Leaf Village would live as unseen ghosts. Clearing his wandering thoughts, Shizui approached the outer perimeter of the clan grounds. By now, the area was surrounded by dozens of Anbu shinobi, with none other than the third Hokage leading them. Chapter 294, Dormancy. Half an hour earlier, the third Hokage had already arrived at the Anbu base to summon his elite shinobi. However, upon reaching the outskirts of the Uchiha clan district, the third Hokage did not rush in immediately. Instead, he ordered his subordinates to seal off nearby streets, ensuring no one could interfere with Itachi's actions. From the third Hokage's perspective, since he had agreed to Itachi's plan to eliminate the Uchiha clan tonight, the matter had to be handled cleanly and efficiently without leaving any evidence. All Uchiha capable of combat, except for the elderly, women, and children, had to be eradicated. If even a single Uchiha escaped the village, it would undoubtedly create a storm in the ninja world, putting both himself and the village in a vulnerable position. At this moment, the third Hokage spotted Denzo walking out of the clan grounds. He frowned deeply. He had reprimanded Denzo not long ago, so why was Denzo still brazenly appearing at the Uchiha clan grounds tonight? Did Denzo desire the Sharingan so much that he couldn't restrain himself? Suppressing his displeasure, the third Hokage coldly asked, "Denzo, I need an explanation. Why are you here at the Uchiha clan district?" Shizui, disguised as Denzo, quickly fell into character and replied calmly, "Hiruzen, I was merely conducting routine surveillance on the Uchiha. I suspected that they might attempt a coup tonight, so I brought my subordinates to surround the Uchiha district." Unexpectedly, internal conflict erupted within the Uchiha clan, and many of them were killed. To ensure that their bloodline limit doesn't fall into the wrong hands, I instructed my subordinates to retrieve the Sharingan from the corpses. Hearing that Denzo came for the Sharingan, the third Hokage's heart sank. So it was as I expected. Ever since their teacher Tobirama Senju passed away, Denzo had been targeting the Uchiha, considering them a clan born of evil. Whenever the village suffered losses, Denzo would accuse the Uchiha of being responsible. Whenever the Uchiha achieved any merit, Denzo would suppress them under various pretexts. Over time, even the third Hokage, along with Koharu and Hamura, began to hold biases against the Uchiha, unintentionally pushing them toward rebellion. If not for Itachi's sense of duty, the Uchiha coup tonight wouldn't have ended so easily. It could have resulted in devastating consequences, perhaps the loss of the entire Anbu force. Even so, the village still lost dozens of elite ninjas tonight. Once word of the Uchiha clan's destruction spread, it would undoubtedly cause a ripple effect. The third Hokage looked at Denzo with growing irritation. Stepping closer, he said sternly, "Denzo, if you hadn't attacked Shizui, this situation wouldn't have reached this point. Starting today, I am relieving you of your position as a Hidden Leaf village elder and expelling you from the village council." Shizui, disguised as Denzo, sneered inwardly but maintained his composure. After a long, hard stare at the third Hokage, he coldly retorted, "Hiruzen, I will follow your orders. But one day, you will regret this decision. Remember, I've done everything for you and this village. I've done the things you wanted but didn't dare to act on. Can you say the same for yourself, Hiruzen?" With that, Shizui walked into the crowd and vanished into the darkness. The promise to save the Uchiha clan had been fulfilled. From now on, Shizui's life would revolve around assisting Lord Byakuya and exacting revenge on those responsible. He needed to uncover how the Uchiha clan was driven into such a desperate situation and how his grandfather, Kagami Uchiha, had truly died. Once he discovered the truth, he would ensure the culprits received an unexpected surprise. The third Hokage's face grew darker as he replayed Denzo's words in his mind. Doing the things I wanted but didn't dare to act on. He had indeed once considered eliminating the Uchiha or targeting Shizui, but those thoughts had remained just that, thoughts. As long as he never acted on them, nothing had truly happened. Denzo, however, always used the excuse of serving the village to pursue his own selfish desires. And whenever he made a mess, the third Hokage was left to clean up. But that was in the past. With the Uchiha clan, the village's biggest headache, now destroyed, there was no longer any reason for Denzo to remain in his position. If Denzo continued unchecked, even the Hyuga clan might rebel next. Walking into the Uchiha district, the third Hokage could still smell the metallic stench of blood in the air. Yet when he entered the homes, no bodies were to be found. The root must have already taken them away. Before long, the third Hokage arrived at Fugaku Uchiha's residence. Inside the Fugaku residence, there were still no bodies to be found. However, Judging by the extent of the destruction to the building, it was clear that a fierce battle had taken place here. After searching for a while, an Anbu ninja finally found Sasuke hiding in a wardrobe. Sasuke was drenched in sweat, clutching tightly onto the Anbu ninja's clothing, repeatedly muttering Itachi's name as if he had encountered some kind of nightmare. After bringing Sasuke to the third Hokage, the Anbu ninja spoke, "Lord Third, this should be the last survivor of the Uchiha clan. His condition is not good, it seems he was severely frightened." Frightened? The third Hokage shook his head, sensing Sasuke's chakra. After confirming that Sasuke had been caught in a Genjutsu, he quickly formed the necessary hand seals to dispel it. As the chakra in Sasuke's body stabilized, his complexion improved significantly. Seeing this, the third Hokage sighed softly and said, "This child wasn't merely frightened. He was under a Genjutsu. I've already dispelled it for him, but to fully recover, it will likely take several months or even years." The Anbu ninja nodded in agreement, his gaze filled with sympathy as he looked at the boy in his arms. In just one night, this child had lost all of his family and became literally an orphan. Such a heavy blow would be hard for even mentally mature adults to bear, let alone for such a young child. The third Hokage, however, had a different perspective as he looked at Sasuke. Of course, he would take good care of Sasuke, as it was his duty as Hokage. But Sasuke was not just a pitiable orphan to him. Sasuke was the last remaining Uchiha in the village and the only link between himself and Itachi. Although the massacre of the Uchiha clan tonight was a joint effort between Itachi and other ninjas, it indirectly showcased Itachi's strength. Given Itachi's age of only 13, there was a very real possibility that in the near future, he could become a powerful ninja like Madara Uchiha. If such a ninja were to stand in opposition to the village, it would be a huge loss for the village. Moreover, the third Hokage still needed to rely on Itachi to divert the hatred, investigate the truth behind the Nine Tails attack years ago, and uncover the true motives of the so-called masked man and what he intended to do to the village. Chapter 295, Border Friction of Hidden Leaf Village. The next morning, the third Hokage rose from the cold leather sofa, lighting his pipe and exhaling smoke as he cleared his mind, preparing to properly handle the aftermath of the Uchiha massacre. First, there was the vast inheritance of the Uchiha clan. While it theoretically belonged to the surviving Uchiha, Sasuke, due to his young age, it would have to be entrusted to the village for safekeeping. As for the large Uchiha compound, the village wouldn't need to manage it for Sasuke, he could move in directly. In addition, the third Hokage needed to pacify the more restless ninja clans in the village. Although the Uchiha clan had been destroyed by the defector Itachi Uchiha, the other ninja clans might still fear for their own survival. If they united to attack the Hokage's office or simply rebelled, it would be very detrimental to the village's future development. While most of the village's ninjas came from commoners, the clan-born ninjas were more reliable at critical moments. As the third Hokage was thinking about these matters, there was a sharp knock at the door. After permission was granted, the head of the Anbu, Shinzo, rushed into the office and quickly addressed the third Hokage, "Lord Third, I have two urgent pieces of news to report." The third Hokage raised an eyebrow, looking at his eldest son, and calmly said, "Is it good news or bad news?" "There's both good and bad news." Shinzo's expression darkened. The third Hokage straightened up, frowning as he looked at Shinzo. He replied, "Then tell me the good news first, followed by the bad. We'll need to face both eventually." Shinzo nodded and said, "The good news is that, apart from Sasuke Uchiha, there are other Uchiha survivors in the ninja world. They were not harmed by Itachi Uchiha." The third Hokage furrowed his brows, saying in disbelief, "There are still Uchiha survivors? Where did you find them? Did you bring them back?" It's said that some ninjas saw Uchiha in a nearby town. However, after spotting the ninjas, they immediately fled, not giving us a chance to make contact. This wasn't good news, it was bad news. The third Hokage's mind was in turmoil, but the secret deal with Itachi was one that had to be kept forever. He couldn't share this with anyone. After a soft sigh, the third Hokage said, "Perhaps it was Itachi's massacre of his clan that frightened them, making them become paranoid and unwilling to trust anyone." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "Now, what's the bad news?" Sarutobi Shinzo's expression grew serious as he spoke gravely. "Late last night, the ninjas stationed at the border sent us important military intelligence. Hidden Stone's village has assembled a large force at the border and launched an offensive. Within just a few hours, they have already taken control of several border towns." Upon hearing this, the third Hokage couldn't help but speak up. "They took control of the border towns last night? Why specifically then?" The timing was too suspicious, as if Hidden Stone's village had known in advance that Hidden Leaf village would experience the Uchiha night, prompting them to launch the attack. However, The information about the Uchiha rebellion was a top secret in Hidden Leaf Village. Besides himself, very few knew about it. Could it be that there was a mole within Hidden Leaf Village's upper ranks, or perhaps when the Uchiha rebellion occurred, Itachi secretly colluded with Hidden Stone's Village's Anoki? Otherwise, how could some of the Uchiha have known the news in advance and left the village? With internal and external troubles piling up, the third Hokage's scalp began to tingle. He didn't know how to handle this situation. At that moment, Sarutobi Shinzo spoke again. Lord Third, the conflict on the front line could very well escalate into a war. You must make a decision quickly. We cannot delay any longer. I know, you don't need to tell me. The third Hokage, unusually upset, snapped at Shinzo, saying, you take Kenbu members to the front lines and provide support. I'll send reinforcements to you shortly. Seeing his father's anger, Shinzo could only nod in agreement. Given Hidden Leaf Village's current situation, it seemed like only Shinzo, the head of the Anbu, could take charge. After the Uchiha massacre last night, it was uncertain whether the other ninja clans would be willing to offer any support. This was indeed the case. After a morning of fermenting news, the Uchiha clan's massacre and Hidden Stone's Village's army approaching Hidden Leaf Village's borders spread throughout the village, quickly reaching every corner of Hidden Leaf Village. From the high-ranking advisors like Hamura Midakato and Koharu Udatane, down to the common ninja, everyone learned of these two critical pieces of news and began heated discussions. First, the news of the Uchiha clan's annihilation. The Uchiha clan, which had once controlled the police force and had over a dozen elite jonin, had been completely wiped out in a single night. The perpetrator was none other than Itachi Uchiha, the future clan head. Upon hearing this, the villagers couldn't decide whether the Uchiha clan was strong or weak. If one were to say the Uchiha were weak, they would be right. Over a dozen elite jonin and several dozen ninja were all killed by Itachi. But if one were to say the Uchiha were strong, Itachi himself was the best proof. At just 13 years old, he had the power to kill so many elite jonin. His talent had already surpassed that of the legendary three ninjas, almost reaching the legendary power of the founders of Hidden Leaf Village, the two shinobi heroes. As for the news of Hidden Stone's Village's forces gathering at the border, the villagers felt a chill in their hearts. It had only been less than 3 years since the peace agreement, so why was Hidden Stone's Village attempting to start a war again, and at such a critical time, right after the Uchiha massacre? The next few years would be difficult for the village, and they would have to live with the constant fear of not knowing whether they would survive each day. Meanwhile, in the meeting rooms of the major ninja clans, the atmosphere was tense. The clan leaders and elite jonin sat across from one another, discussing the twin blows of the Uchiha massacre and Hidden Stone's Village's invasion. Regarding Itachi's destruction of his own clan and his becoming an S-rank rogue ninja, the elite jonin of the major clans remained skeptical. Itachi was undoubtedly a genius, but the Uchiha clan's elite jonin were no pushovers. Even if they couldn't defeat Itachi, they had the ability to escape. Thus, the attack on the Uchiha clan last night could not have been carried out by Itachi alone. Others must have been involved. As for who those others were, the elite jonin had their suspicions. It was either Denzo, who controlled the root organization, or possibly even the third Hokage himself. Itachi could not have colluded with outsiders to annihilate his own clan. After such thoughts arose, the elite jonin began to grow wary of the third Hokage. They did not want another Itachi Uchiha to emerge within the village and potentially wipe out their clans for unknown reasons. To prevent such a situation, they only had two options. One was to fully align themselves with the Hokage's office, giving it the power to decide their fate. The other was to play it safe during this war, trying to weaken the Hokage's power as much as possible. Faced with these two choices, some ninjas chose to become loyal dogs of the Hokage's office, fully aligning with the Hokage faction. Others began to silently resist. As long as their clans fell into disarray and became weak, they wouldn't have to worry about being exploited by the Hokage faction. The representative of the former choice was the Inoshika Chotrio clan, while the representative of the latter was the Hyuga clan, which was as famous as the Uchiha clan. Chapter 296, The Path of Hidden Stone's Village at the border of the Land of Fire. The third Tsuchikage, Onoki, stood on a cliff, looking down at the distant forest below. His eyes gleamed with an unmistakable ambition. Due to the arid nature of the Land of Earth and the wealth of the Land of Fire, Hidden Stone's Village had attempted to invade the Land of Fire during the era of the second Tsuchikage. However, because Hidden Leaf Village was so deeply entrenched and well fortified, every military campaign aimed at the Land of Fire had ended in failure. This, of course, was inevitable. Although the Land of Fire was surrounded by enemies and became the primary target for many ninja villages, it was never short of powerful and determined ninjas. Even when besieged by several villages, Hidden Leaf Village was able to secure victories through its deep roots and strong foundation. But those were things of the past. With the Third Great Ninja War, the Ninetales attack, and the Uchiha Rebellion, Hidden Leaf Village had weakened to an unprecedented state. This presented a rare opportunity for Hidden Stone's village to seize a great deal of land and power. Of course, all of this hinged on the assumption that the Uchiha really had staged a coup. Otherwise, Onoki's personal military action would likely end in failure. While Onoki was worrying about the future, his son, Kitsuchi, walked up beside him, excitedly speaking. "Father, you were right. Hidden Leaf Village erupted in chaos a few days ago. The genius of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha, killed all his clan members and defected from Hidden Leaf Village." Upon hearing this, Onoki was slightly taken aback and thought to himself, wasn't the Uchiha clan supposed to stage a coup? Why does this news say that Itachi killed the whole clan and then fled Hidden Leaf Village? This doesn't match what we were told. Just then, Onoki came to a realization. The claim that Itachi wiped out his entire clan was likely Hidden Leaf Village's official statement. The truth of the matter was far more complex. A young man like Itachi Uchiha, no matter how talented, couldn't possibly have wiped out his entire clan on his own. Furthermore, Uchiha ninjas valued family bonds highly. It was unthinkable for Itachi to kill those closest to him. After some thought, Onoki began to piece together the likely scenario. It was highly probable that Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups discovered the Uchiha clan's plans for a coup, and they had sent hundreds of ninjas to encircle the Uchiha compound, crushing the rebellion before it could even begin. Itachi, the young Uchiha, was most likely the only survivor and was branded as the murderer, with a bounty placed on his head. Onoki couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. He knew Hiruzen Sarutobi and Denzo Shimura well. He understood that if those two old foxes found out that anyone in the village was stirring up trouble, they would resort to such extreme measures. And the poor Uchiha youth had become the scapegoat, losing his entire clan and carrying such a heavy burden of guilt. After calming himself, Onoki began to think about his next military move against Hidden Leaf Village. In the past few days, his Hidden Stones village forces had captured more than 10 border outposts and several military camps in the Land of Fire. Once they broke through the next pass, they would be deep into the heart of the Land of Fire. If everything went according to plan, they would reach the outskirts of Hidden Leaf Village within just a few days. This was an unprecedented opportunity for Hidden Stones Village. Once they reached the outskirts of Hidden Leaf Village, the myth of Hidden Leaf Village's invincibility would be shattered. Hidden Stones Village would replace Hidden Leaf Village as the #1 ninja village in the world. Kitsuchi noticed the excited gleam in his father's eyes and said with enthusiasm, "Father, your prediction was truly accurate. After this war, when we take the Land of Fire's territory, both Ao and Han will surely be in awe of you." Upon hearing this, Onoki's inflated ego was quickly deflated. Was he the one who made the crucial judgment about Hidden Leaf Village's situation? Of course not. The real expert on Hidden Leaf Village's state of affairs was none other than Byakuya from Hidden Rain Village. As far back as 6 months ago, Byakuya had predicted the Uchiha would stage a coup, and just recently, that prediction had been confirmed. Thinking about Byakuya's terrifying power, which rivaled the first Hokage, as well as his almost prophetic analytical abilities, Onoki couldn't help but shiver. He felt an unease creep over him. Realizing this, Onoki patted Kitsuchi on the shoulder and said, "Our goal this time isn't the Land of Fire's territory, nor are we planning to attack Hidden Leaf Village." Kitsuchi froze, looking at his father in disbelief. Wasn't his father always the one most interested in acquiring territory? His espionage activities against the stone and grass countries had never ceased. Why had he suddenly shown no interest in land at all? Onoki spoke cryptically, "Our goal is for Hidden Leaf Village to abandon its military alliances with the smaller nations and to relinquish its position as the strongest ninja village. Everything else can wait for later." Hearing this, Kitsuchi understood his father's intent. The current attack on Hidden Leaf Village was taking advantage of the internal chaos within the village. Once Hidden Leaf Village recovered, it would undoubtedly pull Hidden Stones Village into a prolonged war. Although Hidden Stones Village had a large number of ninjas, Hidden Leaf Village's ninja force was no smaller and, in fact, of superior quality. The current internal turmoil in Hidden Leaf Village gave Hidden Stones Village a unique opportunity to seize a significant advantage early on. However, if the conflict dragged on for too long, the situation would change drastically. For one, neighboring villages like Hidden Sand Village, Hidden Clouds Village, and Hidden Mist Village would not remain passive. That was something both he and his father wanted to avoid. What Kitsuchi didn't know, however, was that Onoki's biggest concern was still Hidden Rain Village. If Hidden Stones Village truly absorbed the Land of Fire's territory, it would form a surrounding circle around Hidden Rain Village. The two villages, which had once worked together in secret, would likely come into conflict over their interests. In terms of overall village strength, Hidden Rain Village was no match for Hidden Stones Village. However, Hidden Rain Village had too many powerful individuals. If these experts decided to attack Hidden Stone's village, the village would find itself in a precarious situation, unable to continue executing its missions as before. Especially when it came to Hidden Rain Village's Byakuya, Onoki felt nothing but dread. In Onoki's eyes, Byakuya was a younger version of Madara Uchiha, but with the cunning and malice of Tobirama. He was, in Onoki's mind, the most terrifying ninja of the present era. In the face of such a formidable opponent, Onoki knew that if Hidden Stone's village didn't cooperate now, they would only have one option left in the future: submission. After all, there was no longer a Senju Hashirama in the world. After a few more moments of staring at Kitsuchi, Onoki left the cliff and descended into the crowd below. His gaze shifted toward the direction of Hidden Leaf Village, and he called out to the Hidden Stone's village ninjas around him. Hidden Stone's village ninjas, we must seize the next pass today and push straight into the heart of the Land of Fire. Hidden Stone's village will become the strongest ninja village in the world. Chapter 297, The Future of Uchiha. After several days and nights of travel, the elders, women, and children of the Uchiha clan finally left the Land of Fire. Upon seeing the starkly different geography, the Uchiha were filled with mixed emotions. They were relieved to have escaped the pursuit of Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas but deeply worried about their future. Ever since they had heard about the radical faction within the clan planning a coup, they had been concerned about what lay ahead. If clan leader Fugaku and the other high-ranking members had succeeded in the coup, they would have automatically become part of the Hokage family's ninjas, enjoying a higher status in the village and being able to boast about their lineage. However, beyond that, they would have gained little. The Senju clan, which had once been the Hokage family, had suffered a similar fate. Within just 20 years, the glory of the Hokage family drained away, and many of the Senju ninjas either died on the battlefield during the Ninja World Wars or abandoned their family name to become commoners. Today, when people spoke of the Senju, they only remembered the late first and second Hokage and the Princess of the Slugs. If Fugaku's coup had failed, even those who hadn't actively participated in the rebellion would have been branded as traitors, ostracized and despised by the people of Hidden Leaf Village. However, this life was not too bad for the Uchiha. Due to their association with the police force, their reputation had always been poor. Another accusation wouldn't matter much as long as they could survive. These were the thoughts of the Uchiha clansmen a few days ago, but reality turned out to be even more brutal than they had imagined. They never expected that the very Itachi Uchiha, who had often aligned with the Hokage's office and opposed the radical faction during clan meetings, would turn on his own powerless clan and raise his kunai against them. Had it not been for a young boy saving them, they would have all perished that night. As they sat to rest, the Uchiha turned their gaze toward the graceful young boy standing in the center of their group. His appearance was strikingly handsome, even surpassing the average good looks of their own clan. This boy had led them out of Hidden Leaf Village, helping them escape the slaughter at the hands of Itachi Uchiha. While they were grateful for his help, they couldn't help but wonder where he was taking them. As traitors to Hidden Leaf Village, which place would dare take them in? Among the crowd, Izumi Uchiha had a complex look in her eyes as she watched Byakuya. It had been Byakuya who had saved her when she was attacked by the masked man. However, he had later used Ganjutsu to knock her unconscious and had begun the journey of escape. Throughout the journey, she had been desperate to ask Byakuya his name and where they were going, but each time, Byakuya had only given her a brief glance, using his Sharingan and treating her like a fool before ignoring her questions completely. In conversations with the others, she had learned shocking news. The Itachi Uchiha, the very ninja she had admired since her days in the Ninja Academy, had mercilessly massacred his powerless clan, including her own mother who had raised her with great effort. Had it not been for Byakuya's extraordinary medical ninjutsu, she doubted any of them would have survived. How could Itachi do such a thing? Itachi had always been a genius, someone who even as a child had shown the mindset of a Hokage. When faced with provocations from older kids at the Ninja Academy, he had always appeared indifferent. Even during the Chunin exams, he had shown exceptional abilities. Why would such an outstanding ninja turn against his own clan? Even if the radical faction had failed in their coup, the village's high-ranking officials would never have targeted such powerless members of the clan, right? Izumi could not understand it, and the mental strain made her chakra begin to flow in an unusual way. Unintentionally, her Sharingan activated, and her eyes began to undergo a transformation, seemingly heading toward the path of the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, just as this transformation began, the intense mental strain caused her to faint, and the evolution halted, leaving her with plain black eyes once more. Sensing the chakra changes around her, Byakuya briefly glanced toward Izumi. He had noticed her earlier transformation and had thought she might awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, whether due to her physical condition or the insufficient stimulus, the evolution had barely begun before it ended. He had been somewhat hopeful, wondering if Itachi's little admirer might unlock something new with her Mangekyo. Instead, it had all come to an abrupt halt. Pulling his thoughts back from the distractions, Byakuya walked over to Izumi, who had fainted, and gently laid her on the grass, covering her with a blanket. After finishing this, Byakuya approached the Uchiha clan members and spoke up, "Everyone, we are about to reach the borders of the Land of Rain. There are a few important things I need to inform you of, and also to talk to you about the plans that Byakuya-sama and Shizue-sama have for the Uchiha clan." Shizue-sama? Byakuya-sama? The Uchiha clan members were a little confused. They recognized these two names, but they also wore puzzled expressions on their faces. Wasn't Shizue missing a few months ago? How could he suddenly appear and arrange their future? As for Byakuya, wasn't he a high-ranking member of the Hidden Rain Village? Why would he interfere with Uchiha matters? Could it be that Shizue's disappearance wasn't the result of Hidden Leaf Village's high-ranking officials, but that he had left the village and contacted Byakuya from Hidden Rain Village during this time, secretly preparing a second plan for the Uchiha clan? Byakuya cleared his throat, signaling for the crowd to remain calm before he spoke again. "I understand that you all have many questions. Please allow me to explain one thing at a time." After speaking for a few minutes, Byakuya clarified the information they had been lacking over the past few months. A few months ago, Shizue was ambushed by Denzo. After sustaining serious injuries, he managed to escape from Hidden Leaf Village. During this month, Shizue had been contemplating ways to save the Uchiha clan. In his moment of despair, he encountered Byakuya from Hidden Rain Village. Byakuya, a ninja from the Uzumaki clan, upon learning of the Uchiha's plight, worked together with Shizue to devise a plan to relocate the Uchiha clan. However, even Shizue and Byakuya never expected that Itachi would act so ruthlessly. After much effort, Shizue and Byakuya had finally managed to lead the Uchiha clan out of the Land of Fire, and now, they were about to face a crucial decision. The choice was whether to retain the Uchiha name and live as rogue ninjas in the ninja world, or to abandon their name and integrate into Hidden Rain Village as ordinary ninjas. In Hidden Rain Village, no discrimination would be shown to foreign ninjas, and everyone would be treated equally. The reason for abandoning the Uchiha name was to avoid trouble from Hidden Leaf Village. After a brief period of contemplation, all the Uchiha members made their choice. They turned their gazes to Byakuya and began signing their names on the agreement. Byakuya looked at the names on the document as the sound of system notifications rang in his ears. Chapter 298, System Rewards and Hidden Rain Village Meeting. Tetsuka joined the Akatsuki organization. You gain Sharingan power, Uchiha bloodline, Yin released chakra. Izumi joined the Akatsuki organization. You gain Sharingan power, Uchiha bloodline, fire style chakra. Itachi joined the Akatsuki organization. You gain Mangekyo Sharingan power, Uchiha bloodline, and mastery of basic Genjutsu. Upon hearing Tetsuka and Izumi's names, along with the corresponding rewards, Byakuya's expression didn't change much. Though Tetsuya and Izumi were both Uchiha with the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, their rewards were quite substantial, but Byakuya was no longer the mid-ranking ninja who was once cautious in the Akatsuki. The rewards for recruiting high-ranking ninjas were just an added bonus to him at this point. It wasn't until he heard that Itachi had joined the Akatsuki and gained the Mangekyo Sharingan that Byakuya's interest peaked. After all, at this stage, the Mangekyo Sharingan was still very useful to him. As he muttered a few words of exasperation, the system prompts didn't end. They continued for another 2 to 3 minutes before Byakuya finally heard the ultimate reward for recruiting the Uchiha clan. Half of the Uchiha clan members joined the Akatsuki organization, and you gained the Uchiha bloodline at its peak, evolving into the Indra bloodline, pseudo, Indra bloodline, pseudo, the bloodline of the eldest son of the Sage of Six Paths, one of the highest bloodlines in the ninja world, just one step away from the Sage of Six Paths bloodline. Hearing that the system rewarded him with part of the Indra bloodline, Byakuya couldn't help but smile. He hadn't expected that his recruitment of the Uchiha would result in gaining the Indra bloodline. Although it was only a partial bloodline, it would still significantly enhance his physical abilities. More importantly, Byakuya had already gained the Ashura bloodline, albeit also a partial one. If the two could be combined, the result would surely be greater than the sum of its parts. Unable to contain his excitement, Byakuya immediately claimed the system rewards. A warm flow surged within him, and Byakuya could clearly feel his body strengthening. His chakra, already comparable to a tailed beast, now reached the level of a tailed beast. In addition, Byakuya felt a balance between his yang release and yin release chakra within him. He no longer needed to deliberately suppress his yang release chakra, and his chakra had become almost perfect. Thinking of this, Byakuya raised his palm and conjured a black rod out of thin air, stabbing it into a nearby tree trunk. In the next instant, He turned the black rod into powder. Compared to before, his speed in using yin-yang release had significantly improved, and he could even vaguely sense a limit above him. If he could break through that limit, he could transcend his current life stage, becoming a descendant of the Otsutsuki like Ashura and Indra, or even an Otsutsuki himself. Unfortunately, although Byakuya could sense the existence of that limit, with his current abilities, he was unable to break through it. The gap between an ordinary ninja and a true Otsutsuki descendant was a chasm difficult to overcome. To cross this gap, he would either have to release the restrictions and allow the Otsutsuki to plant a mark called the Karma Seal, or rely on the outer path's Chido statue and the Ten Tails to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. In the original timeline, Obito and Madara Uchiha both became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Although Obito only held the Ten Tails for a few hours, he still gained unimaginable benefits from crossing the life stage. However, becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki wasn't without consequences. The current Ten Tails was no longer the true Ten Tails, but rather a part of Kaguya Otsutsuki. If someone became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, they would likely become a pawn in Kaguya's scheme. Madara, as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, was a prime example. Despite being a six-paths level powerhouse, Madara was easily subdued by Black Zetsu. Fortunately, Byakuya had the system, so he didn't need to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. As long as the Ten Tails belonged to the Akatsuki, he could still gain tremendous benefits from it and step into the Otsutsuki life stage. After pulling his thoughts back from his excitement, Byakuya sat down in a cross-legged position for another half hour. While digesting the system rewards, he also thought about the future plans for the Akatsuki. After the night of the Uchiha massacre and the threat of Hidden Stone's village as invasion, the strongest and most powerful village in the ninja world, Hidden Leaf Village, was temporarily unable to focus on the rest of the ninja world. Hidden Stone's village was also busy taking advantage of the Land of Fire, leaving other regions unattended. The only village with the resources to intervene in the affairs of the ninja world was Hidden Cloud's village. The Akatsuki was now ready to proceed with their next step, hunting the tailed beasts and sealing them into the Jido statue to resurrect the Ten Tails. However, to seal the tailed beasts into the Jido statue, they would need the power of the Rinnegan. Upon returning to the village, Byakuya would either need to find a way to obtain Nagato's Rinnegan or convince Nagato, Yahiko, and the others to join the tailed beast weapon plan. Byakuya was confident that he could convince the trio. After arriving in Hidden Rain Village, Byakuya first had his subordinates settle the Uchiha clan members. Then, using the quick jutsu, he appeared outside Hidden Rain Village building. After nodding at the guards, he entered the building. At this time, Yahiko was not in his office but was in the meeting room with Konan and Nagato. The discussion they were having was very familiar to Byakuya. It was about the war between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Leaf Village, as well as the recent Uchiha massacre night that occurred in Hidden Leaf Village. Yahiko and the others were deeply shocked by the war between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Leaf Village. The conflict between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Leaf Village had not escalated to the point where war was inevitable. Any war without certainty of victory was seen as reckless and impulsive. After all, a ninja village can decide when to start a war, but it cannot control when the war ends. This was completely inconsistent with their stereotypical image of Onoki. Onoki was known for hiring rogue ninjas from the black market to create chaos in other countries. During the Great Ninja Wars, he always remained the last to enter the battlefield, hoping to profit from the conflicts. The recent invasion of the Land of Fire by Hidden Stone's village was something they had been puzzled over for several days, unable to make sense of it. As for the Uchiha massacre night, Yahiko and the others were even more baffled. The Uchiha clan was known for its strong sense of family loyalty, so how could someone like Itachi Uchiha, who acted as a madman, emerge from such a close-knit group? They simply couldn't understand how Itachi could massacre his own clan and then leave the village to become a rogue ninja. From a motivational standpoint, Itachi had no real reason to turn on his own family. What could have happened within the clan that couldn't have been resolved by sitting down and talking? Was Itachi perhaps even more insane than Madara Uchiha had been? As Yahiko and the others pondered these questions, they suddenly heard footsteps from outside the meeting room. All three of them turned their attention toward the door. Chapter 299, Tailed Beast Weapon Plan. Upon realizing the newcomer was Byakuya, Yahiko and the others immediately relaxed their guard. Seeing Byakuya's forced smile, Yahiko furrowed his brow, clearly irritated, and asked, "Byakuya, where have you been lately? We haven't heard from you at the organization's base." Konan chimed in, "The last time I tried to go to the base to find you, I was told by Akon that you'd been gone for quite some time. What exactly have you been doing?" Byakuya shrugged and replied, "I've been busy. I went to the Land of Snow for a while, then took a trip to the Land of Fire. Only now do I have a chance to come back." "You went to the Land of Fire?" Yahiko's eyes narrowed as he realized something. He asked with a strange expression, the Uchiha massacre night in Hidden Leaf Village, and the invasion of the Land of Fire by Hidden Stones Village. You wouldn't have anything to do with that, would you? At this point, Yahiko's face grew more serious as he suspected he had uncovered the truth. Byakuya rolled his eyes and responded, the Uchiha massacre? What does that have to do with me? The conflict between Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups and the Uchiha clan has been brewing for a long time. It was bound to happen sooner or later. It doesn't really matter whether it happened earlier or later. You know about the Uchiha massacre? Yahiko asked, his expression shifting. Byakuya nodded and said, of course, I know about it. However, Hidden Leaf Village's official statement is a lie. The losses the Uchiha suffered were nowhere near as extensive as they claimed, and the attack on them wasn't as simple as they made it seem. What do you mean? Yahiko looked at Byakuya, his breath quickening. Byakuya casually found a place to sit and said unhurriedly, Yahiko, a lot of things can't just be taken at face value. You need to think deeper. On the surface, the Uchiha were attacked by Itachi, but how much benefit did Itachi actually gain from it? Not much, Yahiko agreed. Not only did he lose his clan, but he also became a rogue ninja wanted by Hidden Leaf Village. His future is going to be hard. So what do you think is the real story behind the Uchiha massacre? Byakuya asked with a sly smile before continuing. In my opinion, even if Itachi really did turn on his clan, it must have been because of someone's instigation, either through a sense of duty or through threats. Itachi was forced to take action against his own family. Yahiko hesitated, and once the Uchiha clan was eradicated, the group that benefited the most was Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups. Are you saying that Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups orchestrated the Uchiha massacre? Yahiko widened his eyes. He found it hard to imagine that Hidden Leaf Village, the village that represented the Will of Fire, would target its own people in such a way. Although Yahiko didn't have much fondness for Hidden Leaf Village, the principles behind Hidden Rain Village had drawn from Hidden Leaf Village in many ways. To see the village he once admired fall so far was a bitter pill for him to swallow. He didn't even know what to say. Then it seemed Yahiko remembered something, and he spoke up. Did you go to the Land of Fire this time to bring back the remaining Uchiha survivors? Byakuya didn't deny it and gave a slight nod. On the matter of accepting the remaining Uchiha, he didn't feel the need to hide it from Yahiko. After all, handling the affairs of hundreds of people couldn't be kept secret from him. Upon hearing this, Yahiko sighed lightly but didn't say anything further. From the perspective of Hidden Rain Village's leader, Yahiko should have reprimanded Byakuya, sending the Uchiha back to Hidden Leaf Village while clarifying things with the village. If not, it could easily cause misunderstandings between the two sides, potentially leading to war. However, after seeing Hidden Leaf Village's actions in recent years, Yahiko was deeply disappointed. Hidden Leaf Village no longer felt like the ideal village he once admired. It had turned into a place that hid filth and corruption. It was Hidden Leaf Village ninjas who had attacked Hidden Rain Village and killed Nagato's parents. It was also Hidden Leaf Village ninjas who had nearly wiped out the Akatsuki organization, and yet, the Akatsuki had never owed Hidden Leaf Village anything. It was Hidden Leaf Village that had hurt him again and again. Even with his connection to Jiraiya, Yahiko found it difficult to maintain any fondness for Hidden Leaf Village. At most, he didn't take advantage of their misfortunes when they were under attack. Yahiko withdrew his wandering thoughts and turned to Byakuya. Where have you placed the Uchiha? Do you need any supplies from the village to support them? Byakuya shook his head. No need for supplies. I plan to settle the Uchiha in a secluded area. They can't show themselves yet, and the villagers must not know about them. Yahiko nodded in agreement with Byakuya's decision before asking, now that the Uchiha issue is handled, what do you think about Hidden Stones Village's attack on Hidden Leaf Village? Byakuya pondered for a moment before replying, sit back and watch maybe? Or maybe lie down and watch would be better. Yahiko was left speechless. He wanted Byakuya's opinion, but Byakuya was brushing him off. Was this really an appropriate response in such a serious high-level meeting? Byakuya's expression turned serious. Yahiko, that's my opinion. The war between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village doesn't concern us much. We don't need to get involved in their war. Yahiko nodded, acknowledging that Byakuya's point was valid. Hidden Rain Village didn't need to get involved in this conflict. Before the war reached a certain point, even if Hidden Rain Village intervened to mediate between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village, it would only draw the fire to Hidden Rain Village, without solving the fundamental issue. Conan, however, seemed to have realized something and glanced at Byakuya a few more times. Her intuition told her that Hidden Stones Village's attack on Hidden Leaf Village was definitely connected to Byakuya. Their conversation a few months ago, with Onoki, must have involved today's war. Otherwise, Byakuya wouldn't have been active in the Land of Fire for the past few months, leaving the village. However, Conan hesitated on whether to bring this up to Yahiko. She wanted to point out these details, but Byakuya's judgment had never been wrong. Every decision that seemed absurd at the time always brought the Akatsuki the greatest benefits. In less than 10 years, Byakuya had led the Akatsuki from a small organization in a hidden rain village to a massive organization spanning multiple countries, far surpassing ordinary ninja villages in power. After discussing the Tropic of Hidden Stones village and Hidden Leaf village's war, the high-level meeting gradually drew to a close. Byakuya, who had been deep in thought for some time, addressed Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan, asking, "Yahiko, Nagato, Conan, how do you think the organization and the village have been developing these past few years?" Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan exchanged surprised glances before answering in unison. "The village and the organization have developed well. The living standards of the people in our territory may not be as high as the major cities in the Land of Fire, but compared to the rest of the ninja world, it's more than enough." Byakuya nodded in acknowledgement before asking, "And what do you think about the current situation in the ninja world?" Chapter 300, Change of Stance. What is the current situation in the ninja world? Yahiko and the others fell into deep thought, unsure of how to answer Byakuya's question. After exchanging glances, they all turned to look at Byakuya, their eyes seemingly saying, "Stop keeping us in suspense." Byakuya, not holding anything back, directly stated, "The ninja world is currently in a rare period of peace, but this peace will not last long. At most, it will last another 10 years, and after that, the next great ninja war will break out." Upon hearing this, Yahiko and the others were taken aback. The peace in the ninja world can only last another 10 years? But looking at the current situation, the war between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village is just a small skirmish and shows no signs of escalating. Moreover, after experiencing 3 brutal ninja world wars, all the major ninja villages should have learned how terrible war is and should be less likely to start a war again. But on second thought, the intervals between the past ninja world wars were all within a range of 10 to 20 years. Why is this? It seemed that Byakuya had sensed their thoughts and began explaining in detail. In essence, the major ninja villages chose to negotiate peace at the end of each great ninja war, not because of a love for peace, but because the higher-ups in each village realized that continuing the fight would bring no benefits. Rather than continue fighting aimlessly, it was better to sign a peace treaty and temporarily cease hostilities. During the time of peace, a new generation of ninjas would grow in each village, gradually restoring the strength of their villages. At the same time, the increase in the number of ninjas would lead to growing internal conflicts within the villages. Once the internal conflict accumulated to a certain extent, the villages would either fall into prolonged civil unrest or be forced to expand externally. For any ninja village, external expansion is the best way to divert internal conflict. If they can defeat other opponents, that would be ideal. Even if they cannot defeat their enemies, they can still exhaust their own and the enemy's ninjas, reducing the number of potential competitors. After hearing Byakuya's explanation, Yahiko and the others nodded repeatedly. Byakuya had given a good explanation for why ninja world wars start and end, but from one angle, it seemed that the wars would never stop. Does this not mean that the ideals of the Akatsuki will never be realized? Thinking of this, Yahiko turned to Byakuya and said, "Byakuya, is there any way to stop the next great ninja war? I feel that even if the number of ninjas is restricted, the internal conflicts of the major villages won't decrease." Byakuya gently shook his head and then said, "I can't stop the internal conflicts of the major ninja villages, but I do have a way that can maintain peace in the ninja world for decades, during which no large-scale wars will break out." "What method?" Yahiko asked, his face serious. "Do you remember the era when Hidden Leaf Village ruled the ninja world? Under the intimidation of the first Hokage and the Shura of the ninja world, even if the 4 major ninja villages wanted to start a war to shift internal conflicts, they wouldn't dare to easily start a war." After hearing this, Yahiko fell into thought, and the other 2 showed thoughtful expressions as well. Although they hadn't lived through the era when the 2 great powers suppressed the ninja world, they could still catch glimpses of that era through history books. In the textbooks of Hidden Rain Village, it was described as an extremely oppressive time. For the ninjas of Hidden Rain Village at that time, the 2 great powers, Senju Hashirama and Madara Uchiha, were so imposing that their mere names made the entire ninja world hold its breath. All the ninjas lived cautiously, fearing angering Hidden Leaf Village. However, during the era of the 2 great powers, the ninja world had indeed never seen large-scale wars break out. But the problem was, while Senju Hashirama and Madara Uchiha were alive, their presence did deter the ninja world and prevented the other villages from easily starting a war. However, the conflicts between the major villages never disappeared, and they only deepened over time. After Hashirama's death, Hidden Leaf Village, once the ruler of the ninja world, was immediately besieged by the 4 major ninja villages. That war lasted for over a decade and indirectly led to the Second and Third Great Ninja Wars. The most crucial point was that the Akatsuki organization currently did not possess the strength to intimidate the ninja world. Thinking of this, Yahiko turned to Byakuya and said, "Are you suggesting that the Akatsuki replace the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha? But our current strength is not enough to intimidate the entire ninja world. Right now, we've developed rapidly, but at most, we can only match one of the 5 major ninja villages in terms of power. We don't have the strength to suppress them." Yahiko spoke sincerely, not opposing Byakuya's idea but feeling that it wasn't realistic for the Akatsuki organization. Byakuya smiled lightly, shook his head, and said to Yahiko, "Yahiko, Hidden Rain Village's current strength may be on par with the lower ranked of the 5 major ninja villages, but that doesn't mean the Akatsuki is at that level. Don't forget that Hidden Grass Village, Hidden Hot Water Village, and the countries of the grass and rice are also under the Akatsuki's control. Plus, the organization's accumulated manpower over the years has far surpassed Hidden Leaf Village. Although we haven't yet joined the ranks of the 5 major ninja villages, we've already surpassed them. Our strength surpasses Hidden Leaf Village?" Yahiko looked surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, he understood. While Hidden Rain Village might not match Hidden Leaf Village in terms of the number of ninjas, its high-level combat power had already surpassed them. But even if they had surpassed Hidden Leaf Village, so what? Hidden Leaf Village, once the #1 ninja village, had frequently been besieged. Moreover, their surpassing Hidden Leaf Village wasn't just because they had become stronger, but also because of the suffocating actions Hidden Leaf Village had taken in recent years. If Hidden Leaf Village had the opportunity to recover, it would quickly regain its former strength. Hidden Rain Village should continue to quietly grow rich without taking huge risks to bring peace to the ninja world. Thinking this, Yahiko shook his head. "I still think this plan is too impulsive. The Akatsuki only needs to be responsible for the ninja villages under its control. The rest of the world isn't our concern. If wars break out in other parts of the ninja world or if people suffer, it has nothing to do with us." As soon as Yahiko said this, he immediately regretted it. How could he say such irresponsible things? The original goal of the Akatsuki was to stop the major countries from bullying the smaller ones. They wanted to unite like-minded ninjas and bring peace to the entire ninja world, ending all wars. Now, Hidden Rain Village was already considered one of the major nations, and he had become the kind of person he once despised. However, if they acted impulsively as they did in the past, not only would they fail to bring peace to the ninja world, but they could lose everything they had gained. After hearing Yahiko's words, Byakuya didn't say much. However, Conan and Nagato exchanged stunned glances, their faces filled with disbelief. They couldn't believe that Yahiko had said such a thing. Was this still the same Yahiko who once shone like the sun and persuaded everyone to never abandon their ideals? Although Yahiko's appearance hadn't changed much, the shadow of Hanzo of the Salamander had begun to appear within him. Sensing the gazes on him, Yahiko turned to look at Conan and Nagato. Seeing their disappointed expressions, he took a deep breath and said, "All right, the Akatsuki can't abandon its ideals. But I won't let you lead your comrades to their deaths. I absolutely disagree with starting a war against other ninja villages. Who told you I'm going to war with other ninja villages?" Byakuya looked at Yahiko suspiciously, then said, "This is just your misunderstanding. Or are you saying that you, Yahiko, want to start the next great ninja war more than I do?" Yahiko's expression shifted. He realized that the resolution he had just made was like a punch thrown at cotton, completely meaningless. After a moment of silence, Yahiko asked, "If we don't start the war, how do we deter the 5 great ninja villages? Are we supposed to rely on our words? Of course, a war must happen, but not a long, drawn-out great ninja war. To deter the 5 great ninja villages, we must have the strength to erase them whenever we want, and that's how we make them listen." As he spoke, Byakuya's gaze landed on Nagato. Yahiko followed his gaze and saw Nagato. Upon seeing Nagato's Rinnegan, he finally understood Byakuya's plan. Byakuya intended to use Nagato's power to intimidate the ninja world, but was Nagato's strength enough? Nagato had the Rinnegan, the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, but his physical strength was at best on par with the 5 Kage. He didn't have the overwhelming advantage necessary to crush the 5 great ninja villages. Thinking of this, Yahiko turned to Nagato and asked, "Nagato, how strong are you now? Do you have the confidence to defeat the 5 Kage? How much stronger are you compared to before?" "I haven't fought the 5 Kage, so I don't know if I can defeat them." After a pause, Nagato continued, "However, I'm much stronger than I was 7 years ago. If I were to face Hanzo of the Salamander again, I'm confident I could easily defeat him. But if I were facing 2 enemies of Hanzo's caliber at the same time, I'd be powerless." Hearing this, Yahiko turned to Byakuya and said, "Byakuya, It seems that Nagato can't crush the 5 Kage either. He might be able to defeat them, but the 5 Kage usually have their elite guards with them. Although the Rinnegan is said to be the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, it's just a legend. If the Sage of Six Paths were truly as powerful as a god, he would still be alive today, not a figure in unverifiable legends. Perhaps the Sage of Six Paths was just a powerful ninja from 1,000 years ago. Byakuya's eyes lit up. Yahiko had suggested that the Sage of Six Paths might have simply been a very strong ninja rather than a godlike being above all others. Yahiko's insight was on point, but unfortunately, the Sage of Six Paths truly was above all ninjas. Even though his physical body had been dead for over 1,000 years, his soul still existed in the Pure Land and could transcend the boundaries of life and death, ready to return to the ninja world at any time. After a moment of contemplation, Byakuya slowly spoke, "I need Nagato's Rinnegan, but that doesn't mean I only need the power of the Rinnegan. Over the years, I've gathered a lot of information and received some startling intelligence." "What intelligence?" Yahiko and the others were intrigued and turned to Byakuya. Byakuya spoke slowly, "Nagato, do you remember the Outer Path Samsara statue we summoned? That thing is actually the shell of the Ten-Tails, and it once housed the power of the Nine-Tailed Beasts. The Outer Path Samsara statue is the Ten-Tails shell, and it once housed the power of the Nine-Tailed Beasts?" Yahiko and the others were shocked. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Byakuya, if the Outer Path Samsara statue is the shell of the Ten-Tails and once housed the power of the Nine-Tailed Beasts, how powerful would the complete Ten-Tails be?" "I don't know, but it's definitely more powerful than the Nine-Tails." After a pause, Byakuya continued, "As long as we can capture the 1 to 9-tailed beasts and seal them inside the Outer Path Samsara statue, bringing the Ten-Tails back to life, we'll have the power to surpass the 5 great ninja villages. With such world-destroying power, no ninja village will dare to start a war again. The peace could last for 20, 30 years, or even longer. After all, the power of the Outer Path Samsara statue is different from the strength of the first Hokage. It can be inherited. As long as we're still alive, there will be no large-scale wars in the ninja world." After hearing Byakuya's plan, Konan and Nagato were filled with excitement. They couldn't wait for the day when peace would finally come. They didn't expect peace in the ninja world to last forever, even if it lasted just 100 years, that would be enough. At this moment, Yahiko seemed to remember something and spoke up, "Even if the Ten-Tails has the power to crush everything and bring decades of peace to the ninja world, I recall that the Nine-Tailed Beasts are mostly under the control of the 5 great ninja villages, heavily guarded. How can we possibly sneakily obtain all the Nine-Tailed Beasts? Heck, maybe before we successfully get our hands on them, we end up in a full-scale war with the 5 great ninja villages. Your plan to collect the tailed beasts and revive the Ten-Tails doesn't seem much different from declaring war directly." Byakuya shook his head and replied, "Of course, there's a difference. The operation to collect the tailed beasts will be carried out secretly by elite ninjas. Even if a ninja village loses a tailed beast, they will keep it a secret and not inform the others. Byakuya, you plan to take advantage of the discord between the 5 great ninja villages?" Yahiko narrowed his eyes, now realizing Byakuya's plan. Byakuya's approach to hunting the tailed beasts wasn't as loud and obvious as he had imagined. Instead, it would be done secretly, so even if one of the villages lost a tailed beast, they wouldn't dare reveal it due to mutual suspicion. After all, the tailed beasts and their Jinchuriki were the greatest powers of any ninja village. If a village lost its tailed beast, the other villages possessing them would likely use their tailed beast's power to launch an all-out attack. This plan is clever, but if one village informs the others, they'll surely increase their security around the Jinchuriki or even imprison them, Yahiko cautioned. After a brief pause, Yahiko raised a pressing question: "If we want to capture all the tailed beasts at once, we need to act simultaneously. Does the Akatsuki have enough manpower for such a large-scale operation?" Byakuya nodded slightly. "Do you think the organization has just been expanding aimlessly over the years? I've already recruited many powerful ninjas. We're just waiting for the right opportunity to launch the tailed beast hunting operation. Also, these ninjas are not from Hidden Rain Village. Even if the hunting operation is exposed, they won't trace it back to us." Seeing that Byakuya had already thought everything through, Yahiko couldn't argue any further. He reluctantly nodded in agreement. Moreover, Yahiko understood that even if he didn't agree, Byakuya had already started acting in secret. It would be better for him to participate directly and ensure that the boundaries were properly managed. Chapter 301, The Power of the Judo Statue. After finalizing the plan to collect the tailed beasts, creating a weapon of war, and using absolute power to intimidate the shinobi world, the high-level meeting in Hidden Rain Village came to an end. Before the meeting, Yahiko never imagined the discussion would veer toward the tailed beasts. The act of gathering the tailed beasts would undoubtedly offend the 5 great shinobi villages. Even if done in secret, there was always the risk of exposure. But some things are worth doing, even if they risk failure. If reviving the Ten Tails could truly bring decades of peace to the shinobi world, what did it matter if he became a villain? He, Conan, Nagato, and Byakuya were war orphans with nothing to their names except the dream of world peace. Even if their actions ultimately failed, they would leave their mark on the history of the shinobi world. After the meeting concluded, Yahiko was about to return to his office in Hidden Rain Village to work when Byakuya stopped him. With a light chuckle, Byakuya said, "Yahiko, don't rush back to work. Let's take a look at the Jido statue first." "What's there to see about the Jido statue?" Yahiko's twitched. There were still countless village matters awaiting his signature. He was extremely busy. But on second thought, he realized he had never truly examined the Jido statue, so he nodded in agreement.